It's street talk time, and wow, there was so much that happened this week, but we're going to divide it into sections because, well, like we normally do. But we're going to talk about Friday's episode first.
Yeah, even though there are things that kind of happen that are linked to things that we're going to talk about later, it was pretty standalone today, wasn't it? And I feel that we can't wait until the end of Street Talk to discuss it.
We've just watched it. We need to talk about it right away. Then we're going to talk about the other storylines that happened during the week, most prominent of which was probably Yas lighting the continued abuse of our dear, precious angel, Yasmeen, by the dastardly evil bastard, Jeff. We've also got...
I'm just no. You said your other rude word the other week, and I didn't bleep it.
Bastard is a word that describes the marital status of a child, the child's parents.
Marital status of a child. Okay, continue.
I'm just representing for all the fellow bastards in the world. Bye Baby Shark plus Desperate for Dan is the next story. Then we've got... I hate it when you make me do the storyline titles. Nina moves in there.
No, Ina. Nina moves Ina.
Nina moves Ina.
Yes, because she's moved in with Roy. Yeah.
What was that supposed to be?
It's never mind.
His character in The Simpsons, he makes pizzas.
I mean, you're not allowed to do voices on The Simpsons. You get in trouble for that.
Oh yeah, you get fired. Tracy's brief encounter and Tim bags tea. Bloody ruined today's episode.
Oh yeah, could have done with that. You didn't say what a storyline title for today's episode was, which I don't think is that great.
Oh, I think this episode's really good. The episode title Monica came up with was the Manchester 10K. Very well done, very funny because it's the 10,000th episode.
Yes, I don't know whether they call it the Manchester 10K because it's called the Great Manchester Run, isn't it? But
I thought it was the Great North Run. I don't know.
Never mind.
We don't look. We're not detail orientated.
It was funny writing the notes for tonight's episode because not a lot happened, it seems to say. There wasn't a whole lot of plot. There was a lot of talking and reminiscing and character stuff. I wouldn't even say character development, just, character scenes, which was what we were promised. It was good in a way, because I could just sit back and enjoy them. And then when I was getting to the end of scenes or advert breaks or whatever and thinking what kind of happened there, I kind of was left thinking, well, they carried on driving and they had a chat and they
listened to some music.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to synopsisize this one, or do you want me to?
So we started off with a kind of a throwback to the first episodes with children playing on the street, doing little rhymes and stuff.
Yeah, that was in the very first episode. That's how it started, wasn't it? And I think they did it for, I'm going to say, the 40th episode. They started in a similar way with Sarah Lou and David playing out in the street, and this time it was Ruby and Hope bouncing a ball, and Asher was just there, leaning against the wall. She's so cool.
Yeah. So there you go. There's a little Easter egg there for the first episode. Jenny delivers a package to the Rovers, to Rita, who's staying with her in the Rovers, very cheerfully, until they realise what it is inside.
Jenny just literally opens Rita's post for her.
She goes like, "Put your dishcloth down, Hilda," and starts rooting through her stuff. Finds inside an urn. And Rita, we knew that Rita was going to get the urn with Dennis Tanner's ashes in it, because the publicity has been going on about this. I really did not expect her reaction. She is absolutely furious. She's appalled. She can't understand why it's fallen to her to do all this dirty work. Her ex-husband, her third husband, Dennis Tanner, left the street in disgrace with Gloria, who was...
Well, he did, but then he came back for a bit, and it seems like Coronation Street maybe forgot that he came back for a bit after that, and then he punched Norris in the face and then left in disgrace again. But I did find it funny how Rita was recalling how furious she was that evening when Dennis drove off with Gloria, because that was me.
Yeah, you were.
You listened back to the podcast episode where Dennis went off with Gloria. I was like, we need to record right now, and I did a massive vent about how he abandoned his wife.
On the show that Michael does a rant, and I just listen in awe and shock. But that was Dennis Tanner's leaving, so there you go. That you probably understand how important the character is now. So he was he ran off with, who was Gloria?
Gloria's Stella's mum.
That's it, Stella's mum. Boringest woman on the street.
Sue Johnson.
Her mum was not very boring. She was a bit of a racy goer, wasn't she?
She was, but I mean, it's not like I haven't got classic memories of her, to be fair.
I'd rather pick Rita.
Yeah.
Jenny, she's furious that Dennis wants to be sent. He wants to be taken to Blackpool and have his ashes scattered. So Jenny says, "Should we just flush him down the loo?"
I thought that was a brilliant line.
She delivered it really well.
She did.
Did you go back and watch it?
No, I didn't actually. You told me because I was tapping away bits, and you said I missed a few good Sal
her facial
looks,
expression was great. She could have flicked her hair in.
There was some good belly laughs in tonight's episode. Actually,
there was laughter. There was tears, Michael.
I didn't
There
cry.
were revelations and there were shocks and there was booze.
Yeah.
Except for Yasmeen. So Rita says, "No, we can't. We've got to do it properly. I'll get rid of him." And then she starts talking about her past friends and talking about she's the only one.
None of these friends, as far as we know, are dead. Mavis, Beth, Norris, and Emily.
Pick the phone up, Rita, and talk to him. They're all alive. Then Ken gets a visit from Rita, and they have a little sit down and they start reminiscing. And she's talking about having to go, and Ken eventually gets the hint that she wants him to go with her.
Yeah,
she says, am I that obvious?
Because she's like, "Oh, you're the only one left who remembers him from the old days."
Well, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
I mean, lots of people remember him from 5 years ago, but never mind that. Yeah, because
she basically wanted to say, "You're the only one who was in the original show."
Yeah,
when he
doesn't want to be so quite on the nose. So
then we find out it's Amy's 16th birthday today, but not really, but really. And she gets a birthday card from Hayley and Roy because apparently from Beyond the Grave, Hayley's been taking a few notes out of Sinead's.
I was going to say, Sinead's not the only one.
Playbook and has been writing out things. And don't forget, if you haven't watched the show for a long time, you might not realise that Amy was raised as a baby by Hayley and Roy. They called her Patience because the lovely Tracy Barlow pretended that it was actually Roy's baby.
Yeah, for a spell.
For a little period of time, but we don't talk about or dwell on that too much.
Roy, they were also made her godparents when they were Roy referred to today. I thought that was really sweet, actually.
It was quite sweet.
I mean, this episode was just like, you were tripping over callbacks.
This is what I mean. There were so many bits in here where you're like, right, just to explain, if you haven't watched it for a long time, this is what's going on there. I didn't think that Amy was that bothered. She seemed quite happy and pleased to get this card, but I think if that was me, I would burst into ugly crying.
There were a few bits today where Amy's reactions didn't quite go with how I would expect her to react.
It's difficult because they're obviously symbolically passing the baton from the older generation of the cast to the new generation of the cast, but I think Amy was picked because it's her 16th birthday. Yeah.
I mean, that was a bit of a theme today, wasn't it? About the old generation, the new generation, because they have a bit of, that's one of the chats they have in the pub when they stop off later, don't they? Talking about.
We'll get to it. So Jenny decides that to support Rita in her ash scattering endeavours, they're going to organise a girls' trip to Blackpool, but Sean's allowed to come.
Also
so is Ken. So the party bus arrives. They get on. There's a bit of confusion from me because I originally thought that Claudia was going to go along with them because she was in a publicity photo, but actually she just gives Ken a brochure for an old people's retirement village that
spa and everything.
He is going to look over and decide whether he wants to go or not. She's very keen to leave the street behind and go on to live her golden years out in a...
I hope Ken doesn't get travel sick because I find it difficult to read in the car.
Oh, I don't mind it. Good we got that out, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the party bus turns out, they all get on. I can't remember what the driver's name is. He's a sort of funny, famous
Des,
actor.
Isn't it? Oh, I don't know.
Plays him. I don't know. He's a comedy character actor.
I thought he was a little underused. When they announced that this very famous actor, who I can't remember the name of, that's terrible, is going to be on it, I thought, okay, so they picked him because they're going to make him a bit of a character. And he wasn't really. His shtick was he had a weak bladder.
Yeah.
And he was sitting at the front with Mary while she was bopping away. But I thought they would do more with him. I wasn't disappointed.
No.
To be honest, when they announced that he was going to be in it, I was like, they don't need a new character for this. Keep it with the oldies. So I mean, I
wasn't that bothered. It would have kind of been better if he had just ducked out at the beginning and Mary drove them all the way.
Yeah, but
anyway, Eileen asks Yasmeen because she just happens to see her on the street. Her and Jeff.
This is where Jeff gives her £5, isn't it?
Jeff goes, "Oh, go on, love, enjoy yourself. Take a £5 note. Don't forget to bring the change back."
just like any old granddad would, isn't he? He's giving you he's being
Thanks,
generous.
Granddad.
Obviously, Jeff is just
my day. You could buy a bungalow with that.
Jeff is being what's it called, rationing out,
keeping her under the thumb.
Yeah.
Tracy then sees them all going and she goes, "Oh, can we come, please? Me and Emma and Amy. It's Amy's birthday and she wants to go shopping, but I'd rather go on a bus with to Blackpool.
And the excuse for Emma was her dad's just died. And it was like, it was 6 months ago. And Tracy's like, shut up.
So they really can't say no. They let them on. Evelyn just comes on and says, any room for a small one?
She says, doesn't she say, like, oh, I think I missed the sign-up sheet or something? Yeah. And invites herself in. I'm glad that she got on.
Yeah, there were loads of really great characters. If you listen to our Coven Extra from last episode, we talked about the cast roster.
They really did pick the cream of the crop.
Really thrilled about all the people that were going to be on this coach.
And organised by Jenny as well.
Good job, Jenny. They're off. Rita resolves to give Dennis the send-off he deserves. They are they have lots of scenes with them singing and drinking Prosecco on the coach.
Yeah, basically the second quarter of the episode, isn't it, is just various songs playing.
It feels like there was
about
half an hour's worth of people sitting on the coach drinking and talking and making jokes and listening to Rock the Boat Baby, I'm Every Woman and Hit the Road Jack, which that last one, pretty good, like that one. Tipsy Evelyn's giving limericks and Rita is looking a bit glum actually because she's not really, this wasn't really her idea. I don't know how much she's buying into the frivolity of the moment. She's reminiscing, she's looking at her wedding ring, she realises that she's still got Dennis's wedding rings on there, on her finger, and Audrey starts talking about how she's still wearing Alf's rings, and then they sort of have a little spat about how Audrey reckons that Rita was trying to snatch Alf off of her or something, and she wasn't interested because he was too old and fat, which lovely memory to have of your dead husband. Yasmeen, meanwhile, has to turn down the Prosecco because she said that Jeff thinks she can't cope with alcohol or something, so she does make a point of saying that it's Jeff that's making her not have any drink. So the bus driver's starting to have bladder problems. They pull into a pub where they sit around around tables and eating crisps, talking about what else but the difference between the generations and how each one thinks that they're better than the others. Who's got the most difficult childhood?
Yeah, Nina's talking about cyberbullying and all the pressure of social media and everything these days. And Evelyn talks about like we grew up through a war, and then somebody's like, "What year were you born in, Evelyn?" And he's like, 1946. But I thought it was
Nina was being very adversarial for some reason and quite prickly and very rude. I thought. I don't think I would be so rude to people I didn't know. Only friends get that privilege. Rita, Audrey and Ken are still on the bus, and Rita starts talking about meeting Dennis at the Orinoco Club and, a name check for the Orinoco Club
exotic
again. Exotic
dancing, a trombone playing partner.
Yeah, this is when Audrey starts talking about how Alf fancied Rita, and she was, even though he wasn't her type, he was still the love of her life. And then Ken says, I miss Deirdre every day. And if you were taking a shot for every time they mentioned something nostalgic or a classic character, you would be drunk about 15 minutes into this episode.
Yeah, poor Rita though, she was like,
I still haven't met the love of my life.
No, and to be honest, I thought that Ted Sullivan, having recently watched him on classic Coronation Street, I know he was only around for a little bit, but he was a good chap. Yeah, Ted, second husband, nice lovely old man who died of a brain tumour.
But I don't remember. I didn't watch that one.
No, you didn't watch that one.
I thought you were talking about Ted, Audrey's husband. I was like, he was gay though.
No, not that Ted.
And he wasn't married to her. This is when Nina starts being very rude to everybody. And then she stands up, but I think Evelyn's foot is on her dress. And then she accuses Evelyn of ripping her dress on purpose and storms off. And unfortunately, for some reason, everyone decides to make fun of how she looks, including Evelyn and Tracy, I think, as she's leaving, making fun of her. There's been a few snipes before then about, you're just for the funeral and stuff like that. It's really petty and stupid. Sally
was like, I can help you out with that because my Rosie, she used to be a goth.
Yeah. She's like, I'm used to people
staring.
Although
the best line I have to say about this, I wrote it down. It was Emma earlier, wasn't it? She said, where is it? She said, I've written it. That Nina's a goth, but they're perfectly harmless, so not to worry.
Yeah. I thought this was a bit weird because I don't understand what's so strange about goths. But whatever. Ken gets annoyed when he brings up the fact that he wants to go to this old folks home and Rita and Audrey start poo-pooing it. And he's like, well, Claudia really wants to go, and maybe it'll get me off the street for the first time in my life. And then he moans about the fact that he was born at number 2 and
born at number 3.
Number 3, and the furthest he's got
is number 1 next
number
door.
1.
Yeah. I would have thought that Claudia would prefer to be one of these people that retired to a cruise ship or something.
Well, listen, I want to just interject here because I think I've said in this podcast before, there is a old people's home near us which has got a restaurant that we went to. You can go to.
Yeah.
You can go to there. And it is run by a guy who used to be a chef at the Ivy, and it's got like 2 AA rosettes or something. It's like the best old people's home restaurant in the country. I don't think the bar's set very high there, but it was absolutely
food,
it was really nice food, and it was especially made for old people because it was everything was chopped up so you couldn't choke to death on it, and it was all quite highly flavoured.
I bet they do stuffed marrow, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but it was all very classic, but it was all absolutely gorgeous and really lovely, like you would expect from a high-end quality restaurant. But the prices were all very eccentric. It's like £4.44 for soup and stuff like that. But I was so enamoured of this place that we went to, which was like this kind of like, yeah, like a really nice posh old people's home with all these glorious apartments and little tiny mini villas and stuff. I signed up to get a brochure, and
I thought you were going to say you put your name on the waiting list.
Well, I actually looked up. I was looking it up, going, "Can I go and live there now?" Like how I was like, seriously going, really? How much could it really be? That it can't be that much more. And then like having a mortgage and stuff. And so I was looking it up, and then I was crushed because they won't accept you if you're younger than 55. So I've got a few more years to wait, but as soon as I'm old enough, I'm moving to an old people's home. Wow, no, I'm not going to have any kids to look after me.
Ken's drawing his teacher's pension. Yeah. He's probably just got money to burn.
Loaded. So I say try it out, Ken. See how you like it. You might enjoy it. So anyway, Carla's chasing after Nina, and there's quite a sweet scene where she tells Nina that it's her responsibility to make sure that Nina's okay. Because Nina's like, oh, why do you care anyway? And she says, look, I love Roy, and Roy wants to protect you, so I've got to protect you as well, because Roy's important to me, so are you. But anyway, if you're going to be a stupid pain in the arse, and she also kind of says, Nina, you're the one that's worn this stuff. Nobody's making you a goth. If you can't handle people taking the mick out of you, then maybe you should stop wearing goth clothes, which I thought was really funny. And like,
she makes a good point.
A bit, yeah, it is a bit of an obvious point. So I think Nina then pulls her socks up and realises she's being a bit of a git, and it works. So she ends up back on the bus. She
gives a few apologies, doesn't she? I'm glad, because I was watching that bit going, I'm not really enjoying this bit of the episode. I thought it was odd that Nina was going to come along to this anyway, and now she's kind of being a bit of a downer.
I know. Who does she think she is, being so rude to people that I was gracious enough to spend their time with her and at least try to socialise with her? I mean, they could have just ignored her, but at least they were having a chat.
Yeah, in general, I'm fairly much enjoying Nina, but yeah, so I was like, thinking that scene with Carla and her, despite the fact that it was all sweet and Roy and everything like that, it was like,
well, I said to you this was the conflict part of the episode.
Oh, so yeah, it was
the build up and the jolliness and the underlying tension of Rita worrying about all the characters really worrying about the future, especially the older ones, how they're going to end up, where's their life going now they're in their golden years. Then we had this actual outright conflict of the arguments about, should I go to an old people's home? Also, I'm going to be a cow to people for no reason. Then everything kind of like went back to normal again. People sort of forgave each other and were nice to each other. Nina apologises. So they get back on the road again, and everyone's kind of back into the groove of things. But just as they're in their stride, the bus stops once more so that the bus driver can get off and have a heart attack, nice and quietly in the corner somewhere where we don't see.
We didn't even get to see the heart attack. That was a bit odd.
Well, there was literally no reason for us to see the heart attack because he's not a character that we care about, is he? Rita's fed up with this.
It could have been a classic heart attack alongside that mic.
She was all ready to go, and now she's stopped again. So she gets behind the wheel and she's like, I'm going to drive us. She kind of jerks the coach back and forward and doesn't get anywhere, gives up, goes and sits on the bus stop. Jenny runs after her, takes the urn, puts it on the floor. Then an ambulance turns up and runs the urn over, scattering Dennis's ashes in some kind of anonymous car park midway between Manchester and Blackpool.
11 miles away from Blackpool. So hopefully if it gets a good wind up, and I do hear that there's going to be one this weekend, maybe part of him will reach the tower.
Oh, poor bloody Dennis. Anyway, Mary takes the wheel. Don't worry about Jesus. Mary's here. She can drive us. They go back home again. Eileen and Sean had a fallout. I can't remember what that was about.
It was all about the fact that he managed to convince Jan to go back to Poland.
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
it? I'd kind of forgotten that they'd been... Had they just not really had a scene together for the past 6 months?
Well, there was a lot of arguing on the coach, various people, and then they all made up at the end, and this was Eileen and Sean, and Eileen was saying, there were lots of horrible things said between the two of them. But at the time, as we said, I think that those lines were supposed to be Liz's, so I don't think that Sean should apologise, particularly.
We also find out around that time that Seb's moved out. Emma tells Eileen that he was too scared to
he said
to her, so there's a bed free.
Yes. Well done, Michael. That's right. They can't go back to they can't go to Blackpool, so they go home. But Rita has discovered that the journey was all about the friends she made on the way. She's glad to be surrounded by her friends. She has a little cuddle with Jenny. People are falling asleep. She's looking at everyone going how great they are. Luckily, at that point, Audrey wasn't snoring. Otherwise, the speech might have been a bit different. Go back to the street, all off the bus. They go and look at the carving that Dennis Tanner put into the lintel.
Very glad that they included that into it. It was a total missed opportunity of Dennis's carving hadn't been featured.
And this was something that happened before the show even started. This was when Dennis was a little boy. Because if you didn't watch Corrie at the time, you might be confused and think that maybe this happened in one of the first episodes. But by that point, Dennis was far too old to be carving his name into people's brickwork. But yeah, so this was already on the street, a part of the set when the show began at the beginning.
I wonder when the first time was that it actually, they showed it on screen. I don't know whether it
was really there all along. They look at this carving and she said there's a bit of him forever here. So who cares about his ashes? I don't know, she says. Then there's I didn't really like this bit. Rita looks down at her rings and says, I should take these off now. And I think Audrey's saying, what are you going to do with them? And then she says, oh, look, young Amy, you're here. Why don't you take these rings? This was Dennis's mother's ring. So this was Elsie Tanner's ring. This is like one of the most iconic characters of all time. Her ring has now been given to Amy.
I mean, it's been given to a Barlow, so that's pretty iconic.
But what's the relation between... There isn't, is there? There's absolutely no relation between the Tanners and the Barlows. They just were both in it at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So really, so they're giving Elsie's ring to Ken Barlow's granddaughter, which I suppose is kind of cool in a way. It just didn't make any sense, and Amy seemed to be disproportionately happy to be given an old lady's cast-offs, which at the age of 16, I don't think I would have been. If it was an heirloom from my family, I would have pretended to be polite about it. But I think
she was utterly miserable by that point, wasn't she?
She'd had a crap birthday.
Stuck on a coach all day.
She wasn't even allowed to drink.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a funny bit. I did enjoy when she was after the Prosecco and Tracy says, if you smile and butt your ideas up, you'll get some. And then Amy was just like, puts on this fake smile in the hope that she'll get sozzled by the end of the day. But yeah, she did seem exceedingly happy about getting this ring.
It was a very old fashioned ring.
Yeah, it was an old lady's kind of looking ring, wasn't
it? You wouldn't wear now. I mean, because I'm the only child of an only child who's also had a grandparent who's married into another family that didn't have any relatives. I've got a trunk full of old dead ladies' engagement rings and wedding rings. But I mean, I appreciate them because I'm like 37. I don't think at the age of 16 I would be that interested.
Yeah.
And
well, Amy's wise beyond her years, isn't she?
Amy was doing it for the show, wasn't she? She was taking that Olympic baton, as we said, and shoving it on her finger, I suppose. Back at the Rovers for drinks, everybody, hooray. Sean goes to Eileen's and moves back in, and they have a group hug. Who was the other
Mary
one?
was
Mary's.
there as well.
Mary lives there too?
Apparently, yeah. I can never remember.
So Sean was living at Billy's house with Summer and Paul.
Yes.
And now he's moved out because I guess he felt like a third wheel there because Paul and Billy are dating and Summer is Billy's adopted daughter. So he's now come to his old Bezzy mate's house, Eileen, which really he was always belongs
that's what I was going to
say.
say. That's where he belongs.
And Seb's moved out and moved in with Emma because they're dating.
Yeah. Now, is Emma living with Maria?
That's a pretty big step.
No,
Maria's moved out there to go and live
right.
with Gary in Victoria Court, which also didn't get a mention. So we've had a massive change of living arrangements.
Yeah, had a bit of a shuffle tonight.
That kind of didn't really get emphasised that much, but everything has changed now. So who's the other person living with Eileen?
Mary.
That's right. Okay, so Mary moved out from living with Dev and the twins
because
a
they
while
wanted their own
ago
bedroom.
because they were getting mad about. Okay, everyone.
This is really vitally important information.
It is important.
Everybody. You're not going to understand anything that's going to happen.
Sorry, Michael. It is important.
But the thing is, by the time it comes up again, we'll probably say, "What? Why is Sean living there?"
Well, we'll also forget, and the only time it will come up again is when they're moving out.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you'll be like, "Why is Sean in his dressing gown in Eileen's house?" Anyway, then we get to...
Maybe it's Eileen having a fantasy about that her older, how Daniel did with Sinead in her dressing gown last week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gay best friend. No, but he's gone. Then we have the classic Corrie voiceover montage, character wandering around a darkened set, having what would probably be worth checking up with a doctor if it was happening in real life, auditory hallucinations.
That brain tumour is back again, isn't it?
She's hearing lots of... It was quite a long voiceover montage.
It was a pretty extended one. I didn't particularly mind
with various clips of loads of different people
Alec,
from all
Betty,
throughout.
Hilda,
it wasn't
Elsie,
it wasn't
Mavis.
just very old stuff. It was all the way through.
Yeah.
The way through.
And Dennis got on as well because the new photo board that we mentioned on the podcast, was it last week? She ends up there, doesn't she?
Yeah, well, I'm getting to that bit. Oh. She walks around, she finds the photo booth, which is new, everyone, which Michael's just ruined.
Photo board
then. She looks at that. You don't get to see everything, but you can see that there's a picture of Dennis that she looks at.
Tucked in the corner.
An old picture of him when he was younger.
No, it was a recent picture. Yeah, it was an old Dennis, definitely.
An old Dennis, not an old Dennis.
Yes.
Then she goes and sits in a booth and has a little cry. And Jenny comes down in her dressing gown. Rita's all emotional and she cries out immediately and holds her hands up towards Jenny for a hug and says, "I couldn't have wished for a better daughter." Oh, it was really sad because I love these adopted family stories on Coronation Street. They're the ones that mean the most, I think.
Yeah.
The families that you make, not the families that you're given. Then she reflects on all the landladies past and it kind of sounds like she's killed a few and left and put them in the walls. She says everyone's seeped into the walls and left a bit of themselves behind, which I think get the forensics team in and start spraying luminol on the wallpaper just to check. Jenny kind of makes fun and says, "How many vodkas have you had?" Then Rita says, "I'm going home tomorrow." She's finally ready to move out. She stands on her own 2 feet. She said, "There's plenty of life left in me yet. Some people might be ready for Knacker's Yard, but I'm not yet." And that is another callback to the first line of Elsie Tanner.
Yes.
First line of the show.
No, it's not the first line of the show. It was the first line. Yeah, but she's looking there in her mirror.
It's only been a few weeks since I've seen it, and I've already forgotten how it went.
I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, for Elsie Tanner's first line about ready for the Knacker's Yard. She's not ready for it yet. She's going to live on. That's nice to know. We were waiting for a revelation, which we were promised, of what an old character is going to decide a new path for themselves. And when Rita was wandering around crying, I did think to myself, oh blimey, they're not going to get rid of Rita, are they? She's not going to pop herself off somewhere and live with Mavis or go to Blackpool or try to rekindle her career as an exotic dancer.
Never too late.
No, it
Get
wasn't,
out the tassels.
because we finished that scene and then we found Ken walking Eccles past the pub along the street and he's decided something very important. He says, 80 years too late, but finally it's time to go. Goodbye, old friend. And that's the end of the episode. We're left to ponder Ken's future plans, which seem to be to move away and live with Claudia in what's it called, Shady Glens?
I don't remember. So I mean, I was ever so slightly let down by that revelation at the end, partly because I was expecting it to be a big surprise at the end, but because they'd kind of dripped it into the episode beforehand, I was spending a lot of it thinking, is it just going to be Ken who decides that he's leaving at the end? But also the fact that...
It's called Still Waters.
Oh, okay, there we go. But also the fact that I'm thinking, I don't think we're seeing the back of Ken. I thought this was going to be a massive reveal that a character is leaving. And in a way, I'm glad it's not. I mean, when we were talking about it at the end of last week's episode in the Cabin Extra section, I was looking at all the characters on the list of the Blackpool bus passengers and thinking, I don't want any of them to leave. So in a way, I'm glad that none of them are. But yeah, it felt like it was ever so much of an anticlimax unless we find out that Ken is actually leaving. Now maybe this is leading up to him leaving in the 60th, but I still, to be honest, think he's going to be alive for, and I think Bill Roach has said as much, that they're going to carry him out in a coffin.
I know, this is the trouble I have with this. It's like, I can't believe that he's leaving. No way. I'm going to need to have a press release saying that he's going, and that's definitely what's happening.
Yeah.
Because I just think what's going to happen is he's going to go off with Claudia to Still Waters and live for a few episodes there and decide he doesn't like being in luxury, and then come back in time for the 60th, and then it won't ever get mentioned again.
Yeah.
Until Claudia's ashes turn up on his doorstep.
It would be weird if he turns into a bit of a Norris character who literally comes back, a couple of times a year.
No, that's what I mean. I don't think he is. I think there's just going to be a parallel story of him living there, but it's just going to be a bit like when they go on holiday.
Yeah, maybe they'll make a story out of it, like look how badly old people are treated in these homes or something.
What
like
the hell,
or
Michael?
Or
it's
Scandal.
Called luxury living for later life or something like that.
Yeah, but that's what the adverts want you to think. That's how they get you
Michael,
in with the brochures,
Claudia
isn't
and
it?
Ken both are sound mind and body, and if they were being mistreated in a home, they would be... That's the kind of cockamamie stupid storyline that Coronation Street is really bad at doing. Like when they did the homeless storyline for Sean, and doing the loneliness storyline with Rita, where they pick characters that are inappropriate.
Well, maybe they'll have it like when characters go off to prison and they'll have some drug smuggling in the old people's home, or maybe Jim McDonald will be there.
What do you think goes on in these old people's homes, Michael?
I don't know, I'm just trying to think of something, a storyline to make out of it.
You know that this is a bit different from a place like basically a hospice.
Yes.
It's not the same thing.
Okay.
It's basically like a cruise, but you're not going anywhere. And you're not being quarantined for coronavirus.
Right, so overall
Just
then,
have to say,
for
the first time since that thing started, Corrie is higher than coronavirus.
And what?
Yes.
In the trends?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So, Gemma, overall thoughts of this episode. We were very, very much looking forward to it. Did it live up to your expectations?
I tempered my expectations because I was not expecting... I wasn't expecting, like, bombastic... Like, I think some people got a bit confused on Twitter. It seems like they're expecting people to get murdered or get blown up in the bus or something. But it really was as I expected it. Lots of character work, lots of great performances, lots of comedy, lots of nostalgia. Really felt more meaningful to me because of all the stuff that we'd been doing. But in this year in general, for the podcast, we're doing more looking back at old episodes. So it felt a lot fresher for me. It was a bit funny also seeing people talking about things that to me just happened in a nostalgic way.
Yeah.
I think it's messing with my head a little bit.
It did feel in some ways like a proper classic episode, because one of the things that I've noticed watching this on the DVD is a lot of the episodes, at least the ones that are highlighted on the DVD, do have like one storyline that runs through, and it isn't jumping about here, there and everywhere with the different stories. And this was one long storyline, and not a whole lot happened. There was just people talking. So if they were going for that classic feel, I think they got it. My expectations weren't necessarily as tempered as yours were at the beginning, and I was I think as we got closer to it, I was getting more and more and more excited about it. And although I didn't expect, like, you know, explosions of murder and everything, I think I was building it up for there to be something a bit more shocking, or a twist or something, and in the end it never really happened. And I was also looking forward to seeing Blackpool. I didn't realise that they wouldn't get to Blackpool. When they turn around at the end, I was like, oh, is that it then? I even in the
I honestly also really wish they had actually scattered Dennis's ashes. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll get to that bit definitely in a minute because we've got stuff to say about that.
Do we?
In the final scenes, I was thinking, is there going to be some kind of twist? Is there going to be a revelation? There's still time for Mavis to come walking through that door. And I know I said in the end of last week's episode, I don't think Mavis is going to come back anymore. But you know what? As the week went on, I just changed my mind about it. And I was thinking, you know what? Mavis could make a last-minute reappearance on this. And even Bet, when Rita in the end of the episode was talking about, you know, the landlady's past, I was thinking, is Bet Gilroy going to walk in through that door? Bet Lynch as she is now. And then when at the end all it was Ken saying, I'm going to leave the street, and I was left thinking, no, you're not.
Yeah, no, you're not, you liar.
But on the whole, I enjoyed it. I did feel that as we were getting towards the middle of it, particularly that second quarter, when they were literally just having a bop on the bus, and there was the dialogue that I was getting a little bit thinking, come on, let's get things moving.
I think that was a bit drawn out.
Yeah.
That would be my main criticism. I thought that the bus scenes were a bit drawn out.
And there was nothing. I was enjoying them. There was great dialogue all the way through. Evelyn's limericks. Emma was her usual lovely self.
Hilarious lines.
Yeah, the callbacks to all the previous characters and everything. That was great. But by the time it was like, you know, 3/4 of the way through the episode, and I was really starting to think, come on, so can something happen? A little bit, but I know it wasn't appropriate. They were going for the nostalgia, and I really with that they succeeded.
It was packed in a lot. I wonder what it's. No, I can't understand what it's like to be somebody who doesn't know anything about Coronation Street. Now I've watched 4 discs of the classic episodes. I'm an expert, so. But you know what I mean? It's like if you watch Corrie for like a year. Are you watching this going, what are they talking about?
Also, I wonder how many people tuned in to see the 10,000th episode. People like lapsed Coronation Street fans, or people who just like, well, I hear that this programme that I haven't watched has got its 10,000th episode. I hear it's going to be a biggie. I imagine people like that tuned in and could have been let down a little bit by it.
But I mean, in a way, yeah. But in a way, Dennis was the perfect choice for this the character death, because he was in the first episodes.
He was the first male character on the show. He beat Ken on screen.
And then he was in it recently. So people who've been watching it for 5 years or so or more will know who he is. And so he really neatly bridged the gap. There's nobody else like that.
Yeah.
Really. And it fit in well with Rita's storyline about, what am I doing with my life? Yeah,
it did. It fitted in well, and I think it was a really nice choice to have Dennis, you know, be honoured in some way for the 10,000th episode. But still, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, to have him be run over by an ambulance and his ashes scattered around a car park, that's a bit of a kick in a man when he's down. I didn't like that. And also, when I was kind of watching the episode towards the beginning, I saw some people on Twitter saying, I don't think he's dead, I think it's a trick, and they're going to get to Blackpool and Dennis Tanner's going to jump out. And then that got in my head going, oh, maybe I didn't even think that. I'm not going to get too excited, but I was thinking, and then when
wouldn't that have been amazing if they'd ended the scene with Rita stepping out with the urn, and then she'd suddenly heard someone go, "Hello, Rita."
Yeah.
So you came. That would have been so cool. But we know that the actor was Philip Lowry. Would not come back to Corrie.
No, apparently so. Yeah, the actress who plays the actor, his sister, has said as much that
she doesn't think.
But when the urn got knocked over and the ashes scattered, I was thinking, oh yeah, that's definitely not Dennis inside now. They wouldn't leave this classic character scattered over a car park.
Have you seen Coronation?
And then they did. And they had that tortoise get splashed into Lloyd's face, and yes, they had Mary chucking Frida's dog's ashes onto the floor, but I thought that there might have been a little bit more respect for Dennis Tanner, and I think I'm mostly thinking this, honestly, because we've been watching the old episodes, and he has been by far the biggest revelation for me. Yes, Ina Sharples is fantastic. Yes, Elsie Tanner is amazing. But we knew that already, and I didn't realise and I didn't expect going into watching these old 60s episodes that I would adore Dennis Tanner as much as I do. He is absolutely
he's one of my favourites.
Brilliant. He's easily my favourite male character, at least of these old ones.
Better than Ken.
So to have this happen to him in the 10,000th episode, it does feel like a little bit of a kick in the teeth, especially when they kind of got rid of him, like whenever it was 5-6 years ago, in a bit of a not the best way either, having him run off with Gloria and then come back punching Norris. And then I think people who watched it back then probably did think, oh yeah, he was a bit of a wrong one, wasn't he? He was a bit of a bad lad. But I'm watching him thinking, no, he was great.
He's misunderstood.
He was a classic, hilarious character back in the 60s now, and that element of it, I was disappointed by. He deserved better than that.
I can't remember what it was that I put a ban on Coronation Street doing recently, but I'm going to put a ban on them doing funny things, in inverted commas, with ashes for at least a year now. No, 5 years. 5-year ban on doing funny things with people's ashes because it's not funny anymore. And I don't understand why there seems to be something intrinsically funny about somebody being burned and ground into powder, as far as Coronation Street writers are concerned. I understand that there is something a bit comical about holding someone's ashes and flinging them, because it feels a bit like the opposite of what you want. You're not honouring something when you're throwing it away. And there's also the hilarious wind blowing in your face thing that happens in this country. But let's know no more for about 5 years now, because I've had enough of it.
Yeah. I mean, at least the Tanners as a whole, as a family, did get a few nice shout outs this episode. Linda got a mention. She's still alive, living in Canada.
Linda, yeah, and I don't know if Ivan's still alive.
Oh yeah, they didn't mention Ivan, did they? I can't remember. I mean, maybe he got killed off ages ago. I think he might have done, actually, but I'm not sure.
Linda and Ivan weren't in it very much, but she was one of my favourite. Oh, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Then we had Elsie and her rings and everything. So it was nice. But it's left me with a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. What's happened to Dennis?
I really wish they had just scattered it nicely.
Yeah.
Or I wish that Rita had been sad or something. I mean, they tried to make out that he would think it was funny and cool, and maybe Dennis from 1965 would go, that's hilarious. But Dennis from 2015 would probably prefer to be...
Yeah, and it just feels a bit sad that he got dementia and everything. It's like a bit of a downer.
It would have been...
At least Rita did, when she set off on the coach, when the coach pulled off, she was like, let's give him the send-off he deserves. Because he deserves, sorry. But yeah, when she was initially very angry at him, why do you think that Dennis got Rita to scatter the ashes?
Because they wanted him to be in the show.
I mean, did he do it as some sort of sick joke, especially getting her to scatter them in Blackpool? I don't know what Dennis's link to Blackpool is.
I think you're supposed to think that I think it's supposed to highlight what Rita has been worried about this whole time, that Dennis could get to the age he was and his family's in Canada and she's the only person that is left. And I think that's what she's worried about. Like, when I die, is my urn going to be packaged off to some distant relation who doesn't care about me? And you know.
Which is why I was so chuffed that Jenny had a pretty pivotal role in this episode. It's no secret to the listeners of this podcast that Jenny Bradley / Connor is one of our favourite characters. So to have her right there front and centre in episode 10,000, real treat for us. And I've spoken sometimes on the podcast about, like, sometimes I think that they make her a bit too nasty or a bit too scatty in a way, and skitty, but
ditzy.
this ditzy, she was great in this.
She had her head screwed on, she got on, she organised
in the bus. That lovely scene where Rita had her head on her shoulder on the coach, having a bit of a snuggle with her mum, and then that lovely thing about, you're the best daughter I could have ever asked for.
That was really
that
sweet.
scene in the booth was absolutely wonderful. Both Barbara and Sal played that just right. That gave me a warm, cosy feeling.
That was the best bit of the entire episode.
I think so. I think that was one of my highlights in the episodes for sure. Yeah. What did you think about it? The actual, the fact that there was the characters that went on the coach, because we said that we enjoyed the large cast list. I was at some point thinking they could have cut the numbers down.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they had some of them. You can see why they're in there. Amy was in there so she could get Elsie's rings. Eileen and Sean were in there and Emma was in there so that they could talk about Sean moving back in. That scene was nice.
It was, but I think they could have done without it.
Yasmeen and Sally were in there so that Tim could make his speech and ruin the whole thing for me. I hated that so much. So that Sally could forgive him and move on with being worried about how annoying and stupid he is. And Yasmeen had to be in there for that too.
Yeah.
We had to have Audrey and Ken with Rita's to talk about the old guard. Evelyn probably didn't need to be there, neither did Carla and Nina, but again, that plot progressed a little bit because Nina kind of realised that she's got to take, give as good as she gets and be a bit more resilient. And Carla kind of didn't come right out and say, "You're part of my family," but she kind of did, which was sweet. So there were reasons for most people to be in there, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, there were, but it felt a little overcrowded.
Yeah, I know.
But and a lot of the characters that felt a bit, on the sidelines, some of them came up with some good lines. Like Gail, one of my favourite lines in the episode was when Des has his heart attack and Gail says, "I've got a rudimentary sense of first aid. I watched the ER box set twice," and the timing on that was just perfect. The little pause between box set and twice, really brilliantly delivered. I loved I've said that Emma thing about Goss being perfectly hilarious.
No, perfectly harmless.
Oh, perfectly harmless, sorry.
My favourite line of the whole thing was when Claudia was like, "Get a Blackpool, darling. No, it's Vegas for the poor."
That was a really brilliant description. I love that. Blackpool needs to get banners made that up now.
Vegas for the poor.
That's going to be on their brochures for the 2020 summer season.
I don't think so.
Well, see, no, if you get enough of them in, if you attract enough of them in, all their poor pennies add up to much moolah. I also liked the bit where Eileen says that when Gail's talking about burying dead husbands, and Eileen says she should know as well. That was a good one. I like Eileen having a bit of a dig at Gail.
I like the bit where they said that the coach driver was incontinent, and Emma says, "No, he knows what he's doing. He just needs the toilet."
That was funny. There were some really great lines. I think that putting Damon Rochefort in charge of the script was the right thing to do. He's a pretty reliable Corrie writer, and he's been sort of bigging up the episode quite a bit on Twitter recently, and saying that this is the episode that he's most proud of, his best episode ever. So I'm glad for him that it seems to have gone down really, really well on social media. It may not have quite lived up to my expectations, but maybe I've always said that I like the big bombastic episodes and the stunts and the sensationalism and everything.
But you got that later in the year.
Yeah, we'll have that later in the year, exactly, which is why I'm not majorly disappointed. Maybe. What they were going for, I think it turned out really well. I just could have done with a little bit of pace in the middle and some sort of twist at the end that I wasn't expecting, or that hadn't been built up or suggested.
Like telegraphed beforehand to be really surprising.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most people aren't going to believe that Ken's leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One thing that was really cool that we haven't mentioned yet was that when it finished, it ended with the original credits.
Oh yeah, they kind of they went through a load of different credits.
I know, but they started off with the original credits, which was a shot of what's the street called?
Archie
Street, which is what Coronation Street is based on, and the outside they filmed the outside. That was actually Archie Street. So that's the original. It's no longer exists anymore. It was in Salford and Manchester. It's been demolished now, but the set was based on that actual street. And then what happens we're going to talk about it in a minute when we talk about the 60s episode, is that the camera pans along the street, and in the original it would have told you which actors
which characters
which actors playing which characters were in each house.
Yeah, but then they kind of skip through. They show a bit from the 80s credits, the 90s credits for the old cat.
They had the little creepy cat going along.
Yeah, that was nicely done. They also had. What did you think of the fade out to black and white from the street?
It was interesting, but it didn't work for me because it should have been more timeless. Like, they had people they had a modern car, and they had people who were dressed in modern clothes. It would have been better if there hadn't been anybody on the street at all, because then it could have been the street at any time.
Yeah, true. Speaking of, because that was aerial shots, I did like the ones of the coach. There was some nice coach driving through the northern scenery to get into Blackpool. That was quite cool.
Yeah.
And the coach itself, the bus was quite cool.
Coach was really cool, but it was a bit distracting because not all the lasers were really, like, some of the lasers were clearly just overlaid on the top of the...
It felt like it, at least.
They weren't actually touching anybody or being bending around anyone's faces or hitting anything. So I think it was just literally just a filter over the top.
Yeah. So
but there were definitely lasers really going on, because you see the real ones, and it was a really good episode. I think it was great. It's typical Corrie, isn't it? Like, somebody's got to go scatter some ashes in Blackpool, so let's hire a party bus and all get drunk and fall out with each other, but then make up at the end.
Yeah, it did, like, remind you. It was a callback to all the classic Corrie coach trips, wasn't it? Like to Blackpool or to the Lake District when they had the episodes in
New
Colour,
Brighton.
Oh yeah, we have seen a New Brighton episode, haven't we? Anyway, so that was that. I think should we move on and talk about some of the other stories for the week?
They had other things that happened.
They did have other things that happened, including the Yaz lighting story, which I thought was excellent, and this certainly for me ramped up very pleasingly on Monday and Wednesday. So
this was what gave this week such a great backbone.
Yeah, definitely. Still, we were seeing people on social media and forums and Facebook and everywhere saying, end this vile storyline now, I can't watch it anymore.
I know, but I can't get too mad because that's what I was like with the cancer storyline.
Yeah, it's totally understandable, but I'm not feeling that at all. I mean,
but the only thing I would say is that I don't think I ever said it's going on too long, they should end it, and this is not realistic, which is what people are saying about Yasmeen's storyline, which kind of annoys me, because this is, if anything, accelerated. These people are abused like this for years.
Yeah.
So don't complain about how long this is taking.
I found this week, especially on Wednesday episodes, I was getting to a stage where if a new scene started and it wasn't in the Jeff and Yasmeen story, I was just a little bit disappointed.
Like, come on, let's get
I would like,
happening.
Yeah, especially if it was like, Bethany mooning after Daniel again. I was like, oh, come on, let's get back to see what Jeff and Yasmeen are doing, because this was, for me, absolutely gripping. Really was.
And also, just to say that Monday and Tuesday's episodes Wednesday's episodes were directed by Matt Hilton. They
were, yes. Corrie's one of Corrie's most infamous directors, because
no, you can't say infamous. It's a stupid word.
Much loved directors, because and his style is always.
Meant to say notorious.
Yes,
but notorious sounds wrong as well.
His style is very recognisable because he takes exactly.
One of Corrie's most distinctive directors. That's better.
Yeah, because he does different camera angles and stuff. But we'll definitely talk about that later.
Angles.
Anyway,
he's not infamous or notorious.
And yes, so
he's
Monday, Jeff gives Yasmeen £20 to go and do a week's shop, and she's like, "Is this all, darling?" And he's like, "Oh, see, it's a challenge. Go and get enough for a week."
He's very dismissive of her.
Yeah, he totally is. He's good because he's getting ready for his big show, this 1-year-old's birthday party in the Rovers that the whole street seems to be invited along to. Although by Wednesday, Eileen's forgotten about the box, because she's like, what box that Yasmeen got locked in? Never mind. Anyway, Alia comes along to speed dial and says, like, Yasmeen, when I saw you last week, I realised that we haven't had much time together recently, so let's go off for a spa, for a massage. And Yasmeen's like, oh, I don't know whether I can, or what about Jeff? But eventually she accepts that it's only going to be for a few hours. She says, oh, Jeff doesn't have to know, which when she said that, my stomach kind of go, oh no, he's going to find out, and she is going to be in trouble. And it's before long he does find out about it, because she's arranged some cover, and he realises, and he acts all disappointed about that.
This is before she's even had the chance to leave.
Yeah, exactly. Because he says that Emma has just pulled out. And if you remember last year when they had the talent show in the Rovers, Emma was his Debbie McGee. That was another great line from this episode that's just reminded me. Didn't Mary say something like, oh yeah, there was the bit where Yasmeen was talking about being trapped in the box, which is what happens in a minute, and Mary starts saying, if Debbie McGee had had that attitude, she'd never have got where she did, and then she starts describing the box and how ominous it is, and getting Yasmeen to remember the horror of being trapped in it. This scene,
she gets really upset, doesn't she? Because
but anyway,
Mary's hamming it up and talking.
Yeah, and Yasmeen just kind of wants to forget it, but it hasn't happened yet for this. But anyway, so he says that Emma's pulled out and asks Yasmeen whether she can do it for him, and she's like, well, I'm gonna go for a massage, but she because he's got her twisted around his little finger, she can't. She says, "Oh yeah, okay, I can't let you cancel the party," which he says is what's going to have to happen if he hasn't got a lady. So she agrees to do it. So back at home, he does a little bit of training for her. He shows her this magic box, which is how long was it? It's like a metre across, about the same upwards. So a pretty tiny space where the act is that she gets in there. The cover comes up and he pretends to crush her inside, and then you open the box and it disappears. So he's sort of training her on how this is going to work.
I just have to interject here and say, if I was watching this as a spectator, I would not at all be mystified as to how the trick was done.
So how is it, Gemma?
Well, because
you're going to get kicked out of the magic circle.
The box is twice as big as Yasmeen, and then he pushes the top bit and she's in the bottom bit.
Don't let
do you know what I mean? If you looked at something and it was twice as big as somebody, would you wonder where they went?
No, I just tried.
What?
It's all about the illusion, isn't it?
You don't need to defend the trick, Michael. This is Jeff's magic trick.
So anyway, he's getting more and more impatient because she's Alia is calling her to try and find out whether she go to this massage, and he's like, "Oh, this is taken. Why am I never your priority?" So she puts the phone down on Alia and then gets inside the box for the rehearsal. She goes back to speed dial later, and where Alia reminds her, "Look, why do you have to cancel? Your world doesn't revolve around Jeff, you know." And she's like, "Yeah, I know, but this time comes for the show." She's dressed up in her sparkly outfit, which she's not at all happy to be wearing, and that kind of ties back into a few weeks ago or months ago when he was picking her wardrobe for her, and it's not the sort of thing that she would normally wear. But he says, "No, you look great. The audience is going to love you," and she tries her best, and she puts on a little fake smile, and the show must go on, really. So the show starts. Yasmeen gets inside the box, and then we have a little bit where the camera pans around Jeff as he pretends to crush her. But then when he tries to open the box to reveal that she's not there, the mechanism is jammed. She's got did she have her outfit trapped in it or something?
Yeah.
And so he's like getting more frustrated because he's there in front of all these people who are starting to realise that this is going a bit wrong. He jiggles it around a bit, and then eventually the catch releases. Yasmeen gets out, and it's sad because she's really, really pleased with herself after being nervous about all this, and she gets out and she's getting the applause, and she just realises, this isn't so bad actually. So she's there like smiling for the audience, and then this is when Jeff turns around and through gritted teeth tells her that she ruined it and calls her a clumsy oafish bitch.
Oafish.
What did I say?
Oafish.
Oafish bitch.
you oval bitch.
And I do wonder how many times in a year Coronation Street's allowed to say that particular insult. And
we've used up all of our quotient of bastards and bitches.
You have. I've still got plenty to go.
So I think they're combined, darling.
And so Jeff's really mad at her, and it gets even worse when Ed at the end of the act is applauding him about the comedy, and he's saying, "Oh, I love it." They're kind of making out like it was all done on purpose, and Yasmeen's the straight man and Jeff's playing the fool, and he's pretty frustrated by this. He starts offering drinks around apart from to Yasmeen. Tim's uploaded the clip to social media and it's going viral with this hashtag #JiggleItJeff, which is what everyone starts shouting out at him when he's trying to get Yasmeen out of the box. So Yasmeen tries to make
Imagine if this had been the ending to what was it called? Oh no, I forgot the name of the movie. The one with Brad Pitt at the end.
With Split?
No, the one
No,
with
no, that was
Brad
Bruce
Pitt
Willis.
The scene, oh, forget it, I've ruined it.
Never mind, you'll remember. Anyway, Yasmeen's
What's in
trying
the box is the quote. It's a joke.
Yasmeen, oh, yeah, no, I don't know. Yasmeen tries to make Tim stay because she realises that she's going to get, like, a major telling off from Jeff as soon as they're left alone in the house. Jeff does indeed confront her about trying to make Tim stay and says, look, you didn't get enough shopping. I asked you to get a week's worth and then you get 5 days. Then you mucked up the act. Well, you're trying to get revenge on me for something, but I don't know what. I haven't done anything wrong.
You're always mean
and
to
she's
me,
just pleading with him to forgive her and saying, oh, it was all my fault. I can't believe I'm so sorry I've ruined your act. How can I make up with you? And make it up for you to you. And this is when he starts coming at her with her phone camera and he records her kind of squirming in front of him.
How do you like being humiliated on film like I was?
Yeah. And then it's like, I don't know, eat this slop that you've made. Go and get me some chips and be quick about it. I know.
He's horrible. And she just runs off like a little mouse.
Scurries off, but you can see in the next scene is when the penny starts to drop for her, because the end of the episode, in the middle of this magnificent thunderstorm, Yasmeen stands in there, hood up, in the middle of the street, not wanting to go inside. She's terrified of going back home and just wondering what she's gonna be confronted with when she gets home, what she's going to be accused of next. And this is when Emma's kind of skipping along the street under her umbrella and it's like, oh, hello, I love it, I saw you online, Jiggle at Jeff, it's great, it's so good that you were able to do this with him. And it's revealed that Emma did not pull out. Jeff told her that he didn't want her in the act. He obviously chose to be with Yasmeen on purpose, and Yasmeen starts to wonder, he's not been completely honest with me here, what's going on? And it's Wednesday that then it ramps up even more. And we were promised that it would be darker on Wednesday, and indeed it was, both figuratively and literally. So there's a tense breakfast scene where Jeff is there on his phone, kind of looking at all these retweets and comments and shares all over the world that this Jiggle It Jeff has got. And he's also threatening to post the video that he made of Yasmeen squirming later to see how she likes it. He throws away her breakfast before calling her Thunder Thighs. Or no, he says that people will call you Thunder
he's
Thighs,
like, you're
Yasmeen.
going to get fat.
Yeah, I'm going to go down to the cafe and get a decent fry-up for myself. So she's left there at home on her own. And then we have a cafe scene with between Jeff and Tim. And Tim, who has been staying with them after being thrown out by Sally, is picking up that there's maybe a bit of tensions between the newlyweds here. Jeff says, look, maybe Yasmeen's getting frustrated with things at the moment. Like, did you see her poached eggs that she made this morning? They didn't come out right. It was like they were bouncing. And she's taken it out on me. She's also, Tim, sorry to say, seething that you're staying here. We then find as well that Tim has got a long-distance cab drop-off during the day, and Jeff's trying to persuade him to stay over because he's obviously plotting something nasty, some horrible revenge to get on Yasmeen, and he could do with an empty house for this. We find out what it is when they go back later, and he gets her to agree to do more shows with him, even though he knows that she's not really enjoyed being in the box. She's claustrophobic. He's now guilted her into becoming his glamorous assistant for more shows. Yasmeen gets up the courage to mention to him about Emma, and there's a couple of times in this episode where you see a glimmer of her fighting back against this vile oppressor that Jeff has become, and she's like, well, yeah, Emma said that you'd fired her, and he's like, No, she must have been getting it wrong. She didn't want to do it. She don't trust the word. She said, just get in the box, Yasmeen.
Get in the box.
And we see the next scene, Yasmeen has been trapped in the box. Jeff's just sitting there, feet up on the sofa, listening to his music, and Yasmeen is panicking inside, knocking on the box, saying, I need to come out. And he's like, no, you've barely been in there long. Stop exaggerating.
The movie was 7 with Brad Pitt.
Oh, okay, fine.
And his wife's head was
found
in the
out
box.
at last.
Spoiler.
So Jeff says, Jeff saying, well, you didn't know how long you were at the shop the other day. You said you were only for a few minutes, but actually you were 15. Well, maybe if you're in the box this long, you'll realise how long 15 minutes is. And then he leaves the house with the music blaring, goes for a drink with Brian, And he's put the catch down, hasn't he? Because when she was in there before, the catch was up, and she could have got out, but he basically he traps her in there. Good job they didn't have any other fires started in the Nazir house this week, because that could have turned in got a lot more
ex-pedos living there.
Yeah, quite. So we have a couple of shots of Yasmeen in the box, crying, trying to get out, looking desperate. There's like chinks of light coming in from above, and eventually she's released by Tim, and she kind of swoons into his arms after being trapped in there for who knows how long. And that was a quite interesting bit of the episode for me, because I thought finally somebody else is going to realise now what Jeff has been up to, but the sneaky git still manages to talk his way out of it when he comes back later and says, "Oh, we were just mucking about. Oh, I'm so sorry, Yasmeen.
I'm sorry.
I left the catch up. It must have fallen down. I just wanted to. I thought that you were challenging yourself to see how long you could stay in there for something."
You're not claustrophobic.
And Yasmeen confirms the story as well, doesn't she? She's like, "Yes, that's what happened." But Tim kind of notices that when she leaps up, when Jeff tries to put his hand on her shoulder, that something's not quite right. She's been more shaken by the experience than she should have been. I mean, it's a pretty terrifying experience if you're claustrophobic, but Tim realises, something not right there. Jeff later on is very, very apologetic to Yasmeen. He's got her some biscuits and chocolate digestives to apologise, and he's like, "Oh, these are your favourites, Yasmeen, have these." And she's like, "No, they're not my favourites, they're your favourites." Again, just trying to stand up to him before he kind of steamrollers over her again. She also, at that moment, that's when she pipes up about him lying to Tim earlier. She
also says, "I don't want to eat them because she said I'd get fat."
Yeah.
And she eats them like really small amount.
She has a little nibble.
Like she's almost developing some kind of disorder, disorder.
She says, "You told Tim that we were just messing around earlier and I was trying to challenge myself, but that's not true, is it? You were lying to him. Why would you do that? Why would somebody as kind as you be so cruel? And this can't be what love is it? Is this really the best that we can do? It wasn't an accident what happened, and if my mum was still around now, she'd be telling me to run for the hills." You can tell that he's getting very, very frustrated at this point. It seems like he's realising that this plan that he's got, and it's still not completely clear what his end game is, but whatever it is, it's not going the way he wanted to. So then he starts kind of crying and hitting himself and saying, "Oh, it's all this awful ex-wife of mine's fault. She was always so violent and abusive towards me." He just basically piles on the self-pity and begs Yasmeen to forgive him for playing that trick on her, and she does.
See, this is what I was saying to you. I keep saying this. This is that classic Darvo thing, where first of all you deny that you're the problem, then you attack the person for saying that you're the wrong, and then you reverse victim and offender. So he's turned himself into the victim of the story.
Exactly.
And
he's getting hugs off of Yasmeen at the end after everything that he's put her through.
Oh!
Yeah. And meanwhile, we've got Eileen kind of finding out about the situation via Tim, and she immediately smells a rat when she hears about her getting trapped in the box, and she asks Kathy and Brian about it in the pub later, and Brian says, "No, Jeff's been a saint. He's been so good. Yasmeen, she's a bit of an alkie, and Brian's been supporting her. He's a top man." But Kathy, you can tell she can't quite bring herself to agree with that, and she knows as well. She senses that there's something up, but she just can't quite. She hasn't been able to put two and two together yet and work out exactly just how bad the situation is, and like we said earlier, that it was only briefly touched upon on Friday, but there was a bit at the very end of the episode where everyone's getting off the bus, and we see Tim have his reunion with Sally, and then Jeff's there at the door looking at the bus, and it seems like nobody's going to come round.
Lost boy waiting for his mum to pick him up from school.
Yeah, and I was thinking, is Yasmeen going to go back to him, or is she going to realise, having spent a day away with her friends and had such a wonderful time for the first time in months, is she gonna say, "No, screw you, Jeff, I'm not coming home"? And she kind of stands there and looks at him.
Well, because she comes out and she gives him this kind of inscrutable look.
Yeah.
Like she's deciding, and she's still deciding. She doesn't look happy. She looks a bit lost, and they gave her this giant scarf to wear, which kind of made her look even smaller than she normally is, because she's a very petite woman. And so she looked kind of swamped in this kind of big scarf. And then she took a few steps towards Jeff, and it looked like she was going to say, I can't do this anymore. But no. What does she do, Michael?
Straight to his arms for a hug.
She holds her arms out and walks towards him, because his little sad face pulled in her heartstrings.
And so the abuse continues.
Oh.
So, I really did enjoy this story this week. I'd been complaining that it had been meandering a little bit for a few weeks. I definitely felt that it ramped up quite nicely this week. I'm not ready for this to end yet. Whereas with the Jade, I was a bit disappointed last week that it didn't end. This week, I was thrilled by the fact that there's still plenty more to go. I still know that at the end of this, Yasmeen is going to stand up and Jeff's going to be publicly humiliated. I really don't want him to be killed off here. He's got to be
he has to
shamed.
Be shamed, and he has to be. Everyone point at him and say he's the one. He's the terrible person.
Yeah, but I am definitely not ready for it to end yet. Have you been enjoying it just as much?
I am still finding this compelling and addictive and infuriating, and I used to kind of laugh a little bit in my perverse way when Jeff was being a dick, because it was always a bit petty and kind of, you know, and I could see it wasn't really, it was just annoying, you know, and it was a bit silly, the stuff he was getting her to do. But the more he controls her and the more he pushes her boundaries and the more she accepts the abuse, the further it goes every single time. And I'm getting to the stage now where I'm understanding all the people that are saying, I can't watch this is horrible. I feel so bad for her, because obviously in the back of my mind I'm always thinking, well, this isn't real. I can detach myself from this far more easily than I could do the cancer storylines. So it's not like I'm feeling any kind of emotional toil from watching it, as I know many people do. So, but yeah, it's definitely now starting to get to the stage where it's becoming incredibly sinister.
Well, he's becoming crueler and crueler.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, the trapping her in a box, that's not something that he would have done to her, say, 6 months ago. She's been weakened so much by this coercive control that's been going on for the best part of a year now, that he now is at a stage where he can trap her in a box and still get away with it.
I know. And he said something like, oh, I'm not a coward. Cowards hit women. I don't hit women. And he thinks that because he hasn't physically harmed her or touched her, he's somehow not an abusive person.
Yeah.
But
that bit at the end of the Magic Act on Monday episode where he called her a clumsy oafish bitch, that we kind of both looked at each other.
Why are you saying oafish?
I can't speak this evening. We both kind of looked at each other and like, I couldn't believe that he'd do that, and in front of people as well. I mean, that was a pretty ballsy move. Nobody heard him, but no,
that was I absolutely loved that bit, because by that I mean hated, as you all hopefully know. That bit was just her triumphantly relief, feeling, thank God I didn't ruin it. Everyone's enjoying it. This is what you wanted, Jeff. I've done something right that you asked me to do. And then him to turn on her and with clenched teeth say that to her in front of people, and just, that's, to me, everyone has triggers of things that really upset them. And that idea of feeling like you've achieved something good and being cut down is one of my worst fears. And it's happened to me a few times in my life. And it just brings me back to those moments of feeling like 10 foot tall and then 6 inches.
As I said in a tweet earlier this week, she may not have been crushed in the box, but her soul was certainly crushed.
There's nothing
in that moment. You could just see her.
There's loads of worse things, but to me, it's one of the worst things you can do to somebody, to take them in their moment of triumph and turn it around on them and make them feel stupid. And especially, I think Yasmeen obviously is a dignified and graceful person, and she didn't want to do this in the first place.
Yeah.
And then to be, one
of the things that I'm still wondering when I'm watching this is how much of what Jeff's doing to her has he planned out, and how much of it is... But it's still, I'm still thinking this as it's going along. For example, he obviously wanted Yasmeen to get in the box. Why? And did he plan for the box to be...
Punish her.
But everything seemed to go his way. Like, the box getting stuck, and when he was like the act failed and he got humiliated and he got jiggle it Jeffed by the audience, and I was starting to wonder, like, when he's going on about hating all the attention it's getting, did he actually love it because it's given him something else to get onto? What was his original plan? Just put her in the box, get out. They would have been cheers.
He didn't. What do you mean? What are you confused about? He didn't mean for her to get stuck in the box during the trick.
But if the trick had gone perfectly, then she would have, in the end, had a nice. She would have looked back and it would have been a nice experience for her.
I don't think you understand what his motivations are.
What do you think they are? What's his? It's still like what's his ultimate aim here?
I think Corrie's doing a good job of making it clear to me, obviously not to you, that his life doesn't revolve around torturing or abusing Yasmeen, and he doesn't really even realise he's doing it. He, in fact, thinks she's doing that to him. He wanted to perform a magic trick, and I'm just putting myself in his shoes. I don't for 1 minute think I sympathise with him at all. This is what he thinks. He wanted to do a magic trick, and he knew that Yasmeen didn't want to do it, but he's like, no, Yasmeen, in his mind, we're married, I want to do this, you're going to support me. So I know you don't want to do it, but perhaps you should be a good wife and do as you're told. Tells Emma not to bother, so that Yasmeen has to be tricked into doing it, because he knows that she's not going to do it unless she's forced to, and she won't have a handy excuse. Then he wants the trick to go well.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't, his ego is can't take the criticism, and so it all goes on to Yasmeen and blames Yasmeen for it, and then he punishes her by locking her in the box later to show.
So he's taking opportunities when they come along, so it's going even better than he could have planned.
I don't think he's making
them
as much as people think he is. I think it's just like I said it before. He's got this instinct that abusers seem to have for how to turn a situation into them being the victim and giving. And I think that people like that keep a tally in their head of all these imagined slights and things the other person has done wrong, and then when they get an opportunity to get revenge for the things that they have been wronged for, they'll take it. So he's like, well, Yasmeen wronged me because she doesn't take my magic seriously, so I'm going to punish her by getting her to do my trick. Well, Yasmeen ruined my trick and made me look like an idiot, so I'm going to make her sit in the box and think about what she's done.
Do you
that's just how it seems to me.
What do you think about when he started crying at the end? Do you think that was always been his backup plan? And like, if this goes wrong, I'm going to start crying, or was that just a kind of make it up as I go along kind of thing?
I don't know.
Because how much of it do you even believe?
I think he thinks of himself as a victim. It'd be interesting to see Tim's perspective on this, because it could be a complete fabrication.
I'm kind of thinking it must be. I can't think that Coronation Street's going to actually make us feel sorry for Jeff in any way. So I the way I see this playing out is that before long we get to find out or even meet Jeff's ex-wife, and she's actually lovely, or Yasmeen asks Tim about it. I mean, do you think that she could ask him about it, or would she think, I don't want to ask him about it because it might bring up horrible memories about his awful mum?
It'll probably come up in conversation, and she'll say something like, of course, Jeff's told me how awful your mother was. I'm so sorry that you had to live with that. It must have been difficult for you as a child. And then Tim will be like, what? Derp, 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 derp.
Yeah. Okay, so what did you... the direction of the week, we have to talk about this. Loads of really, really interesting camera angles again this week, I thought. And it's funny because camera angles is one of those things that I like to see them try something new with. So I appreciate Matt Hilton's work for that, and I'm so fickle about these things, because give me a Corrie musical montage, or a fade out, or a voiceover over another montage, and immediately I'm like, no, don't like that. But different camera angles I love, and I've seen kind of mixed reviews of this week's shots on Twitter and Facebook. But I loved it. I loved the bits in the bits in the box, which were like, the extreme close-ups of Yasmeen. I like the bits that were it was a little bit blurry of what was going on. Like, do you remember the bit where Jeff comes back from the cafe and he burps really loudly, and you can just see like his legs or whatever? It's almost felt like a bit voyeuristic, like we were spying in on this abusive relationship. The scene with Gary and Daniel in the furniture shop, which has got all the reflections in the mirrors. I love a good mirror shot.
Matt Hilton had quite a lot of mirror shots.
I like
symbolising the mask that people are wearing, and are they really reflection of their true selves, or?
Oh, exactly. I like the bit. There's a few shots as well that showed the characters from below, kind of looking up at them, and there was the particular bit that stood out for me was when Jeff and Brian were walking along the street just after Jeff has locked Yasmeen in the box, and shooting him from below really made it feel like he was, on top of the world, king of the castle, kind of like nothing can stop me. I thought that was brilliant.
I also appreciate the fact that Matt Hilton often does shots of sets that you don't normally see. So we got to see quite a lot of the booth in Yasmeen's kitchen, which I don't think had been on the show before very much.
No, when we went and we visited the set, it was like a lot. It felt unfamiliar.
Yeah,
there had been scenes there, but
just a booth.
It's just a corner with
which you wouldn't have known until recently.
And they showed it from different angles, and it just made it feel fresh and different.
I reckon
it didn't take me out of it,
because obviously when they film them, the walls move around to get the cameras in quite often, and a lot of the sets are basically just 3 walls, as everyone knows, and that's why it's called the fourth wall. But I think that Matt Hilton in particular seems to have a lot of these fourth walls put back in, so they can film from different angles. There was a lot of the back wall of Yasmeen's house, which people haven't seen a lot of.
Yeah,
I think that's funny.
Yeah, I liked as well. I liked
I bet people like.
The other bits I like, there was a couple of just like slow zooms in and out. There was a scene in the Rovers during the book club that just kind of ends with zooming out like back into the behind the bar of the Rovers, and there was a zoom out from Yasmeen and Jeff as well. But what I didn't like, I'm sorry to say, is the actual magic trick shot, the one in the speed dial where Yasmeen gets trapped in the box. Sadly, that didn't work for me, and I feel really guilty saying it as well, because that looked to me like it was the big shot, the one that meant to impress the most in the week, because it was immediately as soon as that shot started, we looked at each other and were like, oh, they've got a different camera here.
Well,
and straight away,
stock, wasn't it? It was more movie like.
Yeah, straight away when the picture quality changed, that took me out of it, and it felt like it wasn't Corrie, and it felt different. And why I can be absolutely fine with weird camera angles and looking in mirrors, or shots through beer glasses or whatever, but the camera, the film quality changes, the camera stock or whatever. Why that takes me out of it, I don't know, but I immediately just distracted by that, distracted from Ian and Shelley's performance, and I similarly on that shot, when I like the idea of it being a one long continuous shot. I enjoy when Corrie does that, and other people do long shots all in one take, but when they zoomed into Jeff's back when he was struggling there with the box, immediately I was thinking, the camera cuts here because this is where they're going to have Shelley King climb out the box, and then they kind of pan round and they show that the box is empty, and then they zoom back in on Jeff's back again, and it's like the camera's cut there again, and I was thinking too much about the different tricks that they were trying to pull, and it totally pulled me out of it. Similarly to that, there was a bit where it showed the audience when they were chanting their Jiggle It Jeff, and it was like a speed up or fast forward round to the front, and that was too not Corrie for me.
I know, but I think it was supposed to be deliberately disorientating, because you were experiencing Yasmeen's sort of you've done public speaking before. Do you ever, when you get really nervous, feel a bit disconnected from your body?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I always feel weird. I feel like I'm hovering above my head, and I don't feel like I'm really inside my own body, and I feel very strange, and everything feels a bit slower than it normally does. And I I don't seem to handle it very well. But this is what the feeling of that scene gave me. Like, Yasmeen was dizzy and disorientated and a bit nervous, and that film stock, because it was different from the rest of the show, it felt unreal, and that's what Yasmeen was experiencing.
Yeah, I totally get that. That's probably what Matt was going for there, but as I say, I was concentrating, I was distracted too much by the different things that were being tried out, and I watched the scene again a couple of times, but yeah, that sadly didn't work for me.
I thought it was... I enjoyed it. The only thing I didn't like was the zooming into Jeff's back, but only because I thought, oh, they must have to do this for some reason. And then I was distracted by, I wonder if it's because the set needs to be redone, or if it's Yasmeen has to come in and out, or what the reason is. But still, you have to take risks sometimes to push things forward. And I do appreciate it when they do stuff like this.
I do. I mean, I'd rather have this than not trying at all.
It was interesting artistically, and I think a lot of it did work. I thought it was. It made this week on the whole feel like
it's a special
an
week.
Event week.
Yeah.
And I think without that the camera trickery and the razzmatazz of that scene in particular. Without that, it might have not been as
because
much of a big deal.
I've kind of been wondering what would that scene have been like in the hands of any other Corrie director. Well, I mean, and Corrie's got a load of other great directors, but Matt Hilton is usually the one that tries those special things more than others. That's kind of his shtick, isn't it? And seeing it could have just been, a camera locked in on the stage.
We don't know how anyone else would have done it, Michael.
No, we don't at all. But would it have been as effective, or would it have been would it have unremarkable?
Been, if it had been done in that way, how would it have been? You don't need to say if someone else. You don't know how anyone else would have done it.
No, fine.
And we don't know enough about the other directors, and we don't know, like, the same way as we're not very good with writers unless we recognise their names. The same with directors, unless it's Matt Hilton, honestly, we generally don't notice who directs it, and so we wouldn't be able to say. No. So I don't think we should really make any comments about who.
Yeah, no, what I mean is if it had been done in a standard Corrie style.
Yeah, just direct, like, static camera from the back of the room, film, yeah.
Yeah, what I did like, actually, as part of that scene, was the shot of the audience behind Jeff and Yasmeen's head, and like they were all brightly lit up from back,
really
and
good, I like that.
And then the darkness of the audience. Yeah. That was a real
very
kind
showbiz.
of. It was totally showbiz. It reminds
me of that terrible film that everyone likes, The Greatest Showman, which is an awful film with a terrible plot.
I haven't seen it, so I can't comment.
Some good songs, so everyone thinks it's great because Zac Efron's in it. Is that who's in it?
Hugh Jackman's in it.
I know Hugh Jackman is in it.
I don't know who else is in it. So. I'm guessing that this storyline can be put on ice for a little bit now. It's done enough to move it forward for me. I just hope that... I mean, it seems like Kathy and Eileen and Tim, if they just put their heads together for a little bit and, joined up the dots, they'd realise here, even with all the clues that Yasmeen was giving on Friday's episode tonight when she was talking about Jeff, but it feels like they might not. I don't know.
I think
might be a while.
I say something about Jeff and his motivation. I think it's always about power with him, and I don't think that he's that calculating, but he takes his opportunities where he can, and he has to be the one who is the powerful one in the relationship. And anytime Yasmeen threatens or takes that away from him, he won't stand for it, and his life is constantly a struggle to maintain the power and take that away from Yasmeen. That's why he gives her hardly any money. That's why he didn't like it when she basically showed him up when the trick went wrong. That's why when she went off and bought the stuff with the money that he gave her and managed to get 5 days plus the 2 days she already had in, that was her getting power back over him, which is why he then would refuse to eat the food that she made for him, because he wanted to be powerful over her, and she had fulfilled what was expected of her, so he wanted to push it away again and show that he was still in power by getting her to go off and get his dinner, commanding him to go and leave, commanding her to go and leave and get his chips.
Yeah.
Think about it like that. Think about it like a constant power struggle that Yasmeen is unfortunately not aware of at all.
I wonder whether, like, late at night after Yasmeen goes to bed, he sits back and watches that video that he filmed of her squirming.
Well, that's why he took the video, but again, a lot of people, I think, are thinking he's going to upload it.
Or he's going to upload it, so
I don't think he's delusional. I don't think that he always believes what he's saying. You know, I'm sad I'm the victim. I'm just upset and worried that, I'm going to be abused again. I don't want to be hit by my partner. He's just trying to get power over Yasmeen. Like that was saying about reversing the victim and the offender. He realised that she was in power because she was the one that was confronting him and saying that you're victimising me and I'm telling you that's what you're doing. So he reversed it so that he had the power then, the power of being the victim in that situation and demanding sympathy from Yasmeen, drawing that attention from her. Yeah. And taking that power from her.
Well, do you think that anything's going to happen to this video? I mean, it seems
don't.
Like this could possibly be found by somebody.
But I don't think Jeff is stupid enough to upload it.
No, when he was saying, "I'm going to upload this and teach you a lesson," he clearly was never going to do it. Yeah. Did I mention earlier about Brian and that it was interesting how Brian's the one who's saying no, he's a great guy and everything, when Brian is also in a way a victim of Jeff's bullying and control as well, because if you remember back to last spring when Brian was losing all his beans and it was Jeff that had been there and pulling his beans out of his pot in the Vicky Gardens and trying to make a fool out of Brian by making him think that if he chants at his beans they'll grow better. So Brian has experienced a tiny amount of Jeff's nastiness, and now he's also in the same way as Yasmeen saying, "Oh no, he's a saint, he's perfect." So I find that quite interesting that he's
like I said, Jeff's playing a game that nobody else knows about.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I think it's really interesting. I was going to say something else. It doesn't matter.
Well, should we move on to the next story then? And Gemma, I'm afraid that it's you who's been lumbered with the Bethany and Daniel story, which not quite reached the dizzying heights of some of the other stories, in my opinion, this week. So go on.
Okay, right. So on Monday, Daniel has a bit of have I woken up to moment on the sofa when he kind of hopes it might be Sinead, but no, it's not. It's Bethany. It's all a bit awkward. In the morning, they're both sort of getting ready for the day. He says, "I had a nice evening with you yesterday," and we were trying to decipher whether that meant that they had slept together, but I don't think so. I think they just fell asleep together on the sofa.
I didn't think that they had.
I still don't know whether what they think the relationship is.
Yeah,
it's still not apparent to me. It's obvious it's moving in ways into the realm of romance,
creepy.
But I don't think that they're quite sure themselves at this point. Daniel goes and apologises to Maria about killing her baby and stuff. I really like this scene though, being flippant, but this was a really powerful scene because Maria was there. She accepts this, says don't beat yourself up over it, but she had that look on her face like many people do who have been wronged through no fault of someone else's actions, but kind of, like she was like, I can't really, like, you're asking for more than I can give you here. Like, I accept your apology, but I really, like, you're asking me for wholehearted forgiveness and to make you feel good about yourself, but I'm still the victim of what's happened here, and all of your crying and stuff has no effect on what I feel about this. Baby back. She didn't really say that, but I think that Sammy did a really good job of articulating this in her expression. It was a really powerful scene, I thought. And they, at the end of it, neither of them were really satisfied, but they kind of drew a line underneath what had happened. I thought that was a really good scene. They talk about how Gary shouldn't have beaten him up, etc. Then we have a scene with Gary and Maria. They're talking about the miscarriage, and Liam overhears them, and they weren't ready to tell him yet, but now he's asking questions. What is a miscarriage? We don't see him being told what one is, but after the break, we know that he has found out that his baby brother or sister has died.
He's not too devastated, I have to say.
He's a bit sad, but it's kind of the concept of a sibling is now gone, and I guess...
Yeah, I mean, he's probably a bit young to really understand the gravity of it, or he's being portrayed as that. I mean, the Coronation Street aren't brilliant at showing what how old is he? Is he 10-year-old would be like? I mean, as somebody who works with them all the time, people like him and Hope are coming across as being a bit younger than...
They should be.
As I know, 9 and 10-year-olds to be able to be.
Immature because of all the things they've been through, Michael.
But yeah, I'm sure he'll move on pretty quickly.
Gary tries to comfort Liam and says, it doesn't mean you'll never have another... It doesn't mean you won't have another brother or sister one day. And then Maria's like, what the hell are you telling him that for? She's really upset. So kind of Gary has to quickly move things along and take Liam out to play football. When he comes back, they're still fraught because Maria's like, you shouldn't have told him that we're going to have another baby because it's not your place to decide that, and I don't even know what I think. My baby's just died. I want to mourn the baby that I had.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of imagine it's similar to Michelle, isn't it? Like once she had that miscarriage with Rory, she couldn't bring herself to think about being pregnant again.
Yeah, well, every woman reacts differently. Then we get this guy called Ike.
Yeah, he's been in it before, hasn't he? Been in it a few times.
I didn't say he hadn't been in it before.
Oh, sorry.
I said this guy called Ike comes into the furniture shop for money. He said, I'm going to get my arm broken by another loan shark if I don't come up with it. And Gary says, look, I'm not giving you any money anymore. Can't you see how stupid you are asking me to give a loan shark to give you money for another loan shark guy? It doesn't work like that. You're not my problem. Do one. So he kind of skulks off. Sarah then speaks to Bethany about what she was up to with Daniel and realises that she spent the night there. And Bethany's like, oh, we didn't do anything. And she also says that Daniel is very hard to read about the situation. So she's not really sure what's going on either. And Sarah quite rightly says, just be careful there, girl.
His wife's just died.
You know why. Daniel has a chat with Gary inside the furniture shop. And I thought this was a bit odd. I felt like they were talking about something we didn't really understand. But I don't know if it's just weirdly...
It was similar to the Daniel and Maria scene, really, where
I didn't
nobody's going to leave the scene satisfied. But it has to be said.
This scene felt too cryptic. I thought they were talking about something that I didn't understand.
Well, partly the shot with the reflection in the mirror, like you said earlier, kind of makes it feel a little bit...
I don't know. They kind of make up and all, really. Then we get Daniel chatting with Bethany, saying... Basically, he basically says, I'm up for a relationship with you. I think there's something between us, but you're going to have to wait for me. I don't know how long I'm going to need to recover from this. And she says, I will wait however long it takes.
Yeah, because
I'm being creepy about this. And then back at home, Gary has a heart-to-heart with Maria, and he says, I want to stay with you because I love you. I think one of the things that Maria was upset about was she might have been thinking, oh, okay, Gary's only with me because he wants a baby with me now. And he's not, it's not because he loves me. It's because I was carrying his child. And so now he wants me to get pregnant again so he can get that back, what he's lost.
Yeah.
But she'll never be able to get back what she's lost.
No.
On Wednesday, we have a bistro scenes where Bethany decides to be a brat. She's still working there as a waitress. Ali's her boss. Ray's got important business associates over, and he says, Bethany and Alia, be very nice to my friend. He's a very important guy. And he gets a bit creepy and makes them squirm a little bit. I think Alia's just still oblivious to this, but Bethany can really sense this. Bethany's creep radar has been finely tuned over the years.
There were definite shades of Nathan and Neil in Ray and his associates this episode.
This is exactly what Nathan, you pointed this out when we watched it, exactly what Nathan used to say to Bethany when he had his friends over for their parties.
Be nice to them, do what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Please
so
them.
She decides to rub Ray's nose in it and act like a robot that cannot compute instructions correctly. So she brings this guy that Ray's trying to schmooze a big sparkly sundae, literally, with sparkler in it, and like it's his birthday party or something. And the guy's like, this is brilliant, I love it. And Ray's not impressed because he knows that Bethany's taking the mick out of him and making him look like an idiot.
Navdeep posted on the Facebook group today that he thinks the reason that Ray was really annoyed is because he didn't get a sundae of his own, and I'm starting to wonder maybe that could be true.
Well, I mean, you do get the sense of deep regret when somebody else gets something like that and you haven't got.
Yeah, he's definitely. He's only said, no, it's fine. I don't want a pudding.
I don't want a pudding. I'm full. Maybe I'll have some cheese. Then, Rage says to Alia, I did not appreciate Bethany's little gesture earlier. And then Bethany kind of comes over and she's acting like a bimbo on purpose. Like she's acting like a dumb blonde to try to pretend that she doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, oh, I'm just trying to be a nice person. And she's all cocky and kind of vacant-eyed and smirking. And he says to her, if you act like that again, you can look for another job. And she suddenly looks shocked and confused. I don't know what she thought that Ray was going to say, or if she thought Ray would think that she was that stupid. So she goes back to Daniel's and she's mad about the fact that Ray told her off for being a brat. I would have fired her myself.
She was
clearly doing it on purpose to annoy him, which is so unprofessional.
Yeah, and we know what Ray's like, but as far as we can see, apart from not giving her the manager's position, which I don't really think that she did.
She didn't deserve it. She's too young.
He hasn't done really that much to, get her to hate him. He hasn't been particularly cruel to her. He hasn't done anything
wrong. I mean,
he's creepy. He's slimy, definitely. But if an employee of mine treated me like this, she would be given her cards, or at least be on a final warning. Not that it feels like we're defending Ray here.
No, I know, but unfortunately, if you reacted like this to every guy who was inappropriate, you would never get anything done. A lot of guys are creepy and weird because they don't know what boundaries are, because no one's ever told them. Well, he doesn't. He doesn't get it.
He doesn't care.
Well, no, it's not. There's no skin off his nose, and she's not in a situation here to have any power over Ray at all, because she's a waitress who's easily replaceable. You're right. We do sound like we're defending Ray, but we're obviously not.
No, Bethany was being
childish.
Definitely.
And unprofessional.
She's still miffed that she didn't get this manager's job. She's
I don't really know what her problem is. Like, she wants to be the manager, so she's proving that she doesn't deserve to be the manager by being an idiot and unprofessional and petty.
Yeah.
She also is mad at him because she thinks he's sexually harassing people. I don't think I'd want to keep my job.
She does know, doesn't she? She spoke to Carla about what Ray was like with Michelle, but yeah, she's just going about it the wrong way.
It's very tricky to know what Bethany really could know about the situation, because we saw what happened and we know, but I don't know how Bethany's interpreted what's happened or how bad of a person she thinks he is. And I think we're talking about Ray like we know that he's going to turn into a villain. Like, I'm fairly sure that this story is going to end with Ray molesting or raping one of the people who work at the bistro. We know this because we're watching a soap. All Bethany knows is that he's a creepy weirdo who gets too close to her, and there was some kind of accusation about him being inappropriate with Michelle.
Yeah. And you could say that what she was doing was empowering, and like the old Bethany, when she was in the middle of the grooming storyline, would have kind of bowed down and done everything that Ray said, and she's proving, no, I've grown from that. I don't let men boss me around anymore.
Unfortunately, he is a literal boss, though.
And if you remember back to like when she did the pole dancing story, it is in character with her. But
it's in character, but unfortunately, it is not the appropriate behaviour when you're a waitress.
Yeah,
and your job is to serve people.
With all that combined with the Daniel stuff, where it's not necessarily her fault, because she's had such a bad experience. She doesn't really know how to act or what's appropriate, or
she's so young as well.
Yeah, exactly. She's young, inexperienced. She's been So I could almost not blame her for going after Daniel, even though for us it's like this is obviously.
But it's sad though, because she's being taken advantage of by Daniel without either of them realising what's happening, because he's kind of grooming her as his surrogate wife.
Yeah, he is.
It's weird.
He's literally seeing her as Sinead. Yeah. Right,
so she goes back to Daniel. She's mad about this job. She nearly got sacked. He says, well, I don't even know why you're doing that anyway. Didn't you want to do that writing course? And she says, I haven't done any more to it. and he says, let's look at it together. They put it together. She finishes off the form. Daniel says, that's really great, you're happy with it? And she's like, yeah, it's all right. And then he goes, send. And now she sent off this.
I'm sure she'll get on the course, because
it really
she's
does it not depend?
writers.
This is the thing, right? As somebody who's done writing courses before in my life, the thing is about them is that they are predatory, and there are hundreds of them everywhere promising you that you're going to be an author and you're going to do this, that and the other thing. Unless it's an actual qualification that you get a certificate that's recognised nationally at the end of it, it's a load of old crap and it doesn't mean anything. So what she applied for?
Don't know. Something that's going to get her away from the streets, something in Preston.
If it's something like in Fisherman's Friend magazine, a little thing that says, ever wanted to be a writer? Why not sign up for this £395 course where I teach you what a book is?
I guess we will find out, because I do think she's going to get on it. And I'm still wondering.
I have to say, the thing about writing is that it's not about what your qualifications are. It's about how well you write.
And who
you don't need to go on a course. Yes.
I still wonder, like, how is Daniel consciously pushing her away? Does he know that he kind of knows that this is getting
there is
too
a scene,
far?
I can't remember exactly what the scene was or what they were talking about, but there's a scene where we're watching them both, and they're both sitting at the table, but we're from the end of the kitchen, and we're looking across the table at them both, and they're both separated by the table visually in the shot, and the gulf between them is, physical in the screen.
I don't know whether I've got a whole lot to say about the Maria and Gary story, because it's not that interesting particularly. I'm still wondering when Maria's going to break out in measles, or have they gone away now?
I don't know what measles are anymore. Do you?
No.
I thought they were like growing up chicken pox.
Well, I don't know. It seems like there is a bit of trouble in paradise there. She's maybe starting to have second thoughts about him, but I don't know.
I don't think so. I think she's just upset.
My main takeaway from this was, I think that Ike might end up dead now, because if Gary has said, no, I can't help you, sorry, you're not my problem anymore, Ike's going to go back to this loan shark. He's going to get his legs broken, or
chopped off.
Yeah, or worse. And Gary's going to end up feeling guilty and taking the blame for whatever happens. And if he'd helped Ike out, he could have been fine. So
interesting theory.
Watch out, Ike, is what I say there. Right, let's move on to the next one then. Nina Muzina. Luckily, this moved quite quickly this week, because we always knew it was going to end up with Nina going to Roy's flat, and that's basically where we ended up on Wednesday. She turns up at the cafe on Monday looking decidedly less gothic than normally. We actually get to see her pink skin underneath the white slap that she usually puts on. She hasn't got any money, but she also won't accept Roy's charity from of veggie pasty or whatever it is. And on Wednesday she comes back again. It seems that she's been using the cafe loo for cleaning her teeth in, because Carla points out a toothpaste stain on her cheek, and then later on still she's raiding the bins outside of Underworld, and who's there to catch her and be utterly vile to her, but everybody's least favourite ex-good character, but Beth. I mean, if somebody who's going to be judgy and critical, just wheel out Beth. She can do it absolutely fine. She's got it to a fine art. So she's like, get out of our bins. And then she goes back and reports it to Roy, and Roy kind of realises, hang on a minute, there's something not right here. We need to go and find her in her flat and see what's going on. But she's not at her flat, Gemma. We have a couple of scenes of her mingling with the homeless in Manchester city centre. There was a nice shot of there's a big Manchester bee on a shop sign or something that then pans down to it just reminded me of the little of the homeless encampments that Sean was living in last year. But there's a rather unsavoury looking fellow that comes over and makes it clear to Nina that she's not welcome in his patch, and then she goes and finds a little nook on the street somewhere, camps down on a cardboard box, and two kids come over and make fun of her appearance and everything. Poor Nina, she gets made fun of quite a lot this week for her appearance, and now I feel guilty about doing the same thing in earlier episodes.
You're very mean.
I know.
And narrow-minded.
But anyway, it's fine in the end, because she after Roy goes back to Nina's flat and finds out that somebody new's living there, he returns to the shop and finds her there. sharing stories with Rita, and she agrees to stay over at Roy's for one night, and there's happy families with him, Nina and Roy. Nina and Carla, sorry. Although she does say on Friday's episode, "Oh, I'm going to go off and see the world now. My world's my oyster." But I mean,
don't know about that.
She might find somewhere else to stay. She really does seem reluctant to stay with Roy, doesn't she?
Well, there's nowhere for her to stay. She's sleeping on the sofa. Carla's in the spare room, unless Carla decides to move out and Nina moves in with Roy, which logically makes sense to me, because I still don't know why Carla's there.
Well, there's been so much house swapping going on just from tonight's episode. I'm sure there's a bed being freed up somewhere. It's just a case of joining all the dots and finding out where it is.
I mean, I know why Carla is there, but I don't know why she's still there, if you understand the distinction.
Yeah. Well, Peter's living with Ken at the moment, isn't he? And if Ken's going to move out to some retirement home, then Carla can move in with Peter at last, and that would leave room for Nina to stay there. But I mean, it could be there, it could be anywhere. I mean, Imran and Toya and Craig, and it could suddenly, have an extension built, or
God knows what they're going to do.
Who knows?
I don't understand how Nina's been evicted so fast without any warning, it seems, and where's all of her things?
I do wonder where her things are, but Roy found. Well, I think maybe he just paid for a month or something, because he'd found all Richards.
But then she must be in arrears again. But there must be a law against evicting someone.
I can imagine Nina as being the sort of, if the landlord's sort of confronts her enough about it, she snaps and says, "Fine, I'm going to leave then," and chooses to go on her own accord. That's the thing that...
The thing that gets me is that house was full of
absolutely
things,
jam-packed, wasn't it?
And it was empty. It was full of the other ladies' things.
Yeah, she was there with her, little homeless knapsack with her.
Yeah, I was trying to look up... I have this really vivid memory of a Jim Henson puppet that had, all of its worldly belongings on its back. And I was trying to find who I'm thinking of and what film it was from. But she reminded me of that, because her backpack kind of protruded out from behind her quite far. But she hasn't got an entire sideboard's worth of books and a chest
she's got a big mannequin, hasn't she?
Where's her dress form?
Yeah. Ugh. Never mind.
So I don't really know. I think we can't look too much into the actual real world that Nina lives in, because it doesn't make any sense if you think about it too much. There's no way he didn't have any assets.
No.
Because how would she have buried him?
Yeah.
There must have been money to pay for the funeral,
I guess.
Is he not insured? We won't talk about it.
Don't talk about it too much. It's just a long, slow way of getting Nina to move on.
You'd think that she would have... Shut up, Gemma. Shut up.
Talk about Steve and Tracy.
Let's talk about Steve and Tracy
Monday, weren't
and
they?
their hilarious book club meeting.
Oh yes, it was the book club on Monday, wasn't it?
Right, so on Monday, Tim's kind of thinking it's weird that Tracy and Steve are being lovey-dovey book readers. They're reading the books together. I think Tim just thinks books are weird in general, being as he's not so familiar with them as other people.
They've only just been part of his life for the last year or two. He's just jealous that he can't be in the book club, because
he could be in the book club.
Well, he can't. That book's probably too advanced for him. He's probably on green band at the moment.
So they have you've written the band of boozy bookworms that gather in the Rovers to talk about the story. You didn't write down all the characters, but there were so many good characters. We had Imran, Toya, we had Brian, Kathy,
Brian inexplicably
Ken,
on a low stool.
Tracy, Steve. Was Johnny behind the bar?
He had his copy of the book.
I can't remember who else was there.
I think that was it. Was it more Evelyn, did you say?
Evelyn was there. Yes, Evelyn was there because she thought it was crap. This was the notebook that they were reading. They're talking about the book. Yeah, we didn't really write anything down about this, but it was funny.
Yeah, Evelyn's talking about how it was rubbish because the heroine's gets her clothes off within the first few pages or something, and I could tell it's written by a man, and aren't men rubbish at writing for women.
Oh, there is
there's the thing about the Imran's talking about sexy lawyers who can rhyme, and then he makes a little poem for himself, and then off-screen quotes from The Princess Bride, which gets swallowed up unless you're really paying attention to it. It was quite... And Tracy and Steve's kind of talking about the fact that there's got to be a bit of fireworks and spark in a relationship, otherwise it's going to get boring. And then this is when sort of he starts getting a bit flirty and frisky with Tracy, and they talk about moving over to go to a hotel for a night, don't they? Tracy reveals that she's booked them a hotel for some quality husband and wife time, and as soon as they get the chance, they make a hasty exit.
Mm-hmm. They show up at the hotel, but then they're like, what do we do now? And they don't know. Yeah,
sexy massage maybe? That sort of thing you're supposed to do in hotels?
They have a topless massage session, which Steve does not do very well. He's got terrible technique. So they have an argument. Steve goes off into the bathroom, and then the door handle falls off. Then Tracy eventually realises Steve's not coming out because most married women will know, or women who are in a partnership with a man for an extended period of time know, you never really can tell how long they're going to be in the bathroom for, and it's really about an hour you have to wait before you can be sure they're dead.
I hope you're not talking about me there.
He says the handles come off, and she says, well, I think you'd rather be in there than out here with me. And so they basically have a standoff where it takes them ages to have a discussion about their feelings.
That was another nicely shot scene as well, actually, because it was all kind of blue and moody and miserable in the bathroom, and the dividing wall between the bathroom and the bedroom part of the hotel room was down the middle, like kind of split screen wise, and then on the other side we had Tracy with kind of these warming orange hues. I thought that was another nice framing.
Really like that. Good job. They have this heart to heart through the wall. Tracy says, I think I love you more than you love me. And this was like, yikes, this is exactly what he said before. So but he denies it. She accuses him of treating her like a mate and says he's scared of her. And he says everyone's scared of you. You killed a man for a start. They make up.
Basically, he comes out. They have a hug, and then they
have a little
they make up in bed. Yeah, so everything's good for Steve and Tracy.
At the moment.
For now, I mean, does this draw a line under the whole Paula angle? Or was it just a temporary plaster over the wound?
Don't
know. It was. I enjoyed it while it lasted. It was nice to see characters that I'm gunning for as a couple make up. But I've got a feeling that there could still be a few more bumps in the road there, including this cat who Tracy admits she's allergic to.
Yeah, is that the end of the Sylvester the cat?
That'd be a shame if it was. I mean, Corrie's not very good at keeping their cats, are they?
Why
Rita's cat, or not Rita's, the one that she borrowed, is only there for an episode or two. And then we had Eva's cat a few years ago.
I am getting a bit fed up with them bringing animals in to great fanfare and praise and applause, because everyone goes mad on social media. It's not just us. We all love it when there's a pet on Corrie, but now it feels like they're never there for very long. Like Peanut, where? Don't know. Rover, no.
Yeah, but
Sylvester,
at least with dogs, we're led to believe that they're still there. It just seems like every time they get a cat, it has to be shipped off of the street within weeks.
Well, it's stupid. Eccles is the only dog that's regularly in the show.
And Cerberus as well.
I'll give him that.
Gets a fair few appearances. But yeah, we haven't seen much of Rover. Well, it didn't even have the same dog actor playing Rover the last time we saw him.
It's Cat's own fault, though, for being contrary. Anyway, I like the reference to the bad description of women in The Notebook. I haven't read that book, but I do like reading. There's a subreddit called Men Writing Women, and basically just really bad examples of how men are just concentrate on like how sexy women are rather than actually describing anything about their personality.
I was quite impressed that Steve and Tracy were able to read this book so quickly, because it was only last Friday's episode that Claudia invited them into the book club anyway, wasn't it? They literally, and I think it was supposed to be the next day. So yeah, fair play to them for getting through it. And that's dedication to the book club. I don't imagine we'll see that book club again, but you never know. It was nice to see a bit of him running.
I know, maybe they will. Sometimes they do things like that.
Right, finally, we have to talk about Tim, Gemma. Basically, Tim tries to get Sally to let him into the house on Monday by playing their song on his phone outside the front door. And it was he's done that before with the Ghetto Blaster, hasn't he? Played her a piece of music. I don't know if it was the same one or not. It just ends up annoying her, basically. And Sally finds Tim's divorce papers at home, which he's kind of left her in a romantic ways. As a way to say, look, I'm getting a divorce from Charlie.
I'm available.
I invite you to our wedding. He even sets a date for it. And she's not impressed by this. She goes to the pub, leaves it with him, and
he's like, I can't understand why this didn't work.
I did kind of feel bad for Tim because he did make an effort. I thought. Were you shaking your head? I know he's an idiot for getting into this situation in the first place, but Sally's being very stubborn about this whole thing.
What?
He's trying at least. But
yeah,
anyway,
he is trying.
They made up in the end because, as you said earlier, on Friday's coach trip, she receives a video message from him where he opens up and gives her a very heartfelt, lovey-dovey speech about how important she is to him. And when they get back to the street after their non-trip to Blackpool, she hugs him and they make up.
Because she was upset because they weren't married because of his stupidity, and then he sends her an invitation to her own wedding with like heart confetti and stuff. Like, the thing that she cares about is the wedding. It's not the wedding that she cares about, it's the marriage that she thought was real that he's made a mockery out of, and now he's trying to brush it under the carpet with this stupid romantic gesture of going, you're invited to your own wedding that you didn't even get any say in or planning. Like, no.
You just can't please some women.
If you say so.
Well, I think, Gemma, we've reached the end of Street Talk. It's another long episode. I don't know how this has happened. What's going on? It's been a big week, though, to be fair.
A what?
A big week.
I thought you said a week.
It has been one of those too.
No, it hasn't.
Oh, a week?
No, it's been a strong week.
Sorry, a week. Every week's a week.
Sorry, I can hear your spelling slightly different from what you intended.
It's been a big week. It's been Coronation Street's 10,000th episode. I'm just so glad that they actually did something to mark it, because we were wondering, 2-3 months ago, weren't we?
We were all going,
whether they actually would.
Are
they going to notice?
They haven't planned anything in time.
Because
little did we know.
There has been so little in the past for the big, 1,000th episode.
Yeah.
Since we've done the podcast, started the podcast, we've covered episode 8,000 and episode 9,000, probably without even realising. And that is quite crazy that we've now got podcast covering 1/5 of the whole of Coronation Street. But it's only like 8 years or so, because the episode numbers have ramped up.
Yeah, they have a little bit, haven't they?
So, score time.
Oh, right. Well, how can you score the week that had a 10,000th episode in it? It's very difficult. I really enjoyed...
I've got an idea.
I really enjoyed today's special episode. I really enjoyed the Jeff and Yasmeen stuff. Just sticking in my craw a little bit about the Tim thing, but I know that I'm probably in the vast minority here.
I have seen some tweets online about people saying that they enjoyed the Tim and Sally reunion, I have to say.
If you like the characters, it was probably a really touching moment because he was on FaceTime and everything, and that's the most romantic way to make a phone call in Coronation Street at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I moaned about some aspects of the 10,000th episode, I do think what happened with Dennis's ashes, I'm a bit disappointed by.
I know, but I was going to say, yeah, okay.
Despite all of that.
It was disappointing, that particular part, but I'm going to point out it is part of the heritage of Corrie capers, and
I know.
We like,
and it's my own fault that I built myself up for there to being some massive twist
occasion.
Or reveal, or basically Mavis and Beck come paragliding in, or maybe even just riding on that classic what's the bike called with two things? Tandem, yeah. Just riding down the street.
I'm glad I didn't go on Twitter and see people saying that Dennis was really alive, because that would have really messed with my head.
I didn't even think of it before I started the episode, but then when I saw somebody saying it, I was like, yes, wow. Of course, it's so obvious. Larry's going to be back even though. But no, I thought overall it was a really good episode.
Really, really amazing episode. It's so nice.
Paid homage to so much of Corrie's past.
It was so nice to have an episode that was so character driven and paid tribute. And I know I don't normally like the montages, but because this was a special episode, I was totally prepared to hear the Rita's montages. I
hadn't thought about it, but now it seems so obvious that they would end up doing it, because that's such a Corrie thing to do. There's been a number of them over the years. I can't say exactly how many.
It was about 5 or 6.
Yeah, you've got to accept some things when they're doing a nostalgia fest.
No, but
like
I like
this
that
was.
bit. I like that bit
I did.
Yeah, just echoing through the years, all the powerful women and all the great men who've been in Coronation Street and been behind the bar, and it was just lovely to remember them all. And just the bit where Rita held her arms out to Jenny. Oh. That really got me. And what else? There were so many really nice bits on the bus as well.
The comedy, the writing was fantastic.
It wasn't just the comedy bits on the bus. that I appreciated, though. It was all the heartfelt moments. The bit where Audrey said that Alf was the love of her life. That was lovely.
Yeah, then of course we got Deirdre mention.
Deirdre mentioned. When Rita said that she had never had that, that was also like, oh.
Yeah. Carla was so sweet with Nina.
I know.
Even though Nina was a bit of a cow, but recently bereaved.
Yeah, we said before. We said before that there's too many people on the bus or whatever. But looking back on it, each one of them really played an integral part of.
I think you're right.
Making that episode special, but also.
And if they hadn't been on it, I probably would have been saying, "Oh, but what about so and so?"
Yeah, and it's really great that they managed to do an episode that actually changed quite a lot of the dynamics between all these characters, because I don't think Ken, Audrey, and Rita had a heart-to-heart for years, if they ever have done.
There's so little of the older characters just having quiet talks, reminiscing moments together. And
that's what you would do, wouldn't you?
Yeah, if you've reached a certain age.
That's what my nan always did with me. Do you remember? No, I wasn't alive.
Yeah.
What else was there? Yeah, just today's episode. It was. I think it threw us off because of what they did with Dennis, and maybe the fact they didn't go to Blackpool. But I don't think they were ever going to go. I think now, if you look at it,
you don't want to be filming in Blackpool. You don't want to be filming in Blackpool in December, do you? Although they did last year.
They've been to Blackpool quite a lot, so
yeah.
Oh, and also there was a bit where they were talking about Blackpool and Jenny and bad memories, and her face was just like.
Yeah, I do. I need to rewatch some of those earlier scenes because when I was typing some notes, I did miss a few glances. I think
some episodes of Corrie are easy to rewatch, and I think this is going to be one of them. I think we've probably missed loads of really cool bits just because you can't take it all in one go.
Yeah.
And I also think that it came in the same week as the Jeff and Yasmeen story with the music's the high production values, and that it was a bit. It was like a game of two halves almost. It was almost like this episode of Corrie should have been on the weekend.
I can imagine, like what you were saying about repeat viewings, when they eventually get round to releasing the best of the 2020s DVD. This is going to be the first episode on it. This is what.
Well, this is a historic
hopefully
episode.
It sets in. It's a good sign of what's to come.
Yeah, I mean,
in the decade.
It was a historic episode, not just because the number, not just because they tried really hard and wanted to make it special, but because they did make it really special, and it was a celebration of everything about Corrie, and it's so nice to be a Corrie fan at the moment and feel like the show cares about its heritage and celebrating how long it's been around, and it feels like you're part of a family who are all like going to somebody's Ruby wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
You know
and that's what you want going into the 60th anniversary as well. And if Coronation Street bosses have seen the outpouring of love for tonight's episode and they think, you know what, we should do things like that a little bit more often, then fantastic.
I don't know if they do it. I don't want it too often because it might lose its
not
impact,
special episodes like it, but more just quiet chatty moments and name drops. And Corrie has been fairly good at giving name drops recently, and today's was overboard with it. But again, because it was a special episode, you didn't mind it. I think if this had just been a normal episode,
what are they doing?
Why do they keep mentioning old characters? But I can completely accept it for this.
Yeah, I love this episode. I thought it was
well done, Corrie. I thought it was a strong episode.
See, I score
Rest
the
in peace, Dennis
episode.
Tanner.
I score the episode by itself. I score it. I think the episode itself gets 4.5 out of 5. I can't give it 5 because of poor Dennis, and I can't. And also Tim. So I can't give full marks, but that's only because I'm a nitpicker and I'm also a stubborn.
Dennis Tanner fangirl.
Yeah, for life. That overall, the whole week, I'm going to give the whole week 4.
Yeah, same.
There were some bits and bobs in there that.
I mean, the Yasmeen stuff was fantastic.
The Yasmeen stuff was absolutely epic.
And I'm sorry for the people that don't like it. You're perfectly entitled to that opinion, but I am so eager to find out what happens next. I'd have this story every week. Ian and Shally again knocking it out of the park, I think, and Matt Hilton, of course.
Well, yeah, everyone who's involved, because there was the writers and the directors.
Yeah, exactly.
And also for this episode too.
Yeah, I just didn't think a whole lot about the Bethany Daniel stuff. I suppose even Tracy and Steve in the hotel was quite nice, actually.
Well,
but yeah. A four for me. I'm going to get 4 damp squids, which was a funny little moment in was it Wednesday's episode or Monday? I can't remember when. Who was it that thought it was damp squid or squid?
Well, it was Jeff that was correcting them, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe it must have been Tim. Or something. Tim got a clip round here from Jeff or something at some point this week as well. Yeah, so 4 damp squids from me this week.
I'm giving it 4 incontinent bus drivers.
Okay.
Maybe I should give it. I should give it 4 sparkly ice creams, and then today's episode's 4.5 incontinent bus drivers. But my character of the week has to be Yasmeen because
good choice.
Because of how Shelley King just plays that character with such dignity and grace, and instead of her sort of being like a scared, scurry little victim, she doesn't feel like that. She really feels like somebody who is surviving through what's happening to her.
I just love seeing her confronting him about the lies.
Yeah.
Towards the end of Wednesday's episode.
She plays her. She's got a bit of empowerment about her, which is an interesting contradiction because obviously she's being robbed of that power by Jeff. But she's still got something. There's just quiet dignity. Like when she came off the coach and she stood across the road staring at him, and she's in her little in her giant scarf looking like a little lost girl, but she also had this kind of power on her face, and she you couldn't read her expression at all, and it's such a skill that Shelley King's got where you're just waiting on tenterhooks to see how is she going to react to him. There was a moment where I think we all thought she's going to leave him, or she's going to say, I can't come back to you. But just when she just melted into his arms, she held her hands out, and it was like, oh no, she's...
learnt your lesson there, Yasmeen.
Such a complex character.
Yes. I'm not going to give it to Yasmeen. I hadn't really thought up until now who I was going to give it to.
Wow,
and although Yasmeen was great, it almost seems like it's a bit too easy. I want to give mine to Jenny this week, and I know it's mostly for today's episode.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's been a while since I've given Jenny character of the week. Yet she is still our most awarded character of the week, and I just so appreciated that in this landmark episode, a character who I have seen more negative traits of, I've struggled to hold up as my favourite character sometimes over the past year, right back today. Sally Ann Matthews' performance, the writing for her, the fact that she was generous to Rita, the snuggly bus bits, the final scene in the pub, all of that.
The mother-daughter thing.
That's what I love about Jenny. And yes, I like her bitchy side, and yes, I like her when she's drunk sometimes. But the relationship, really. that strength of relationship between her and her foster mum Rita, it warms my little cockles. It does.
It is such a great episode today. It was so can't praise it enough. I really loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
And you know what? There still could be the chance that that's not Dennis and he's going to turn up for the 60th anniversary, but I don't want to get my hopes up.
Unless I saw the body in flames myself, I will never believe these are the remains of Dennis Tanner.
Right. I think we better call a day on this now, because it's time for our next middle section. A bit that we recorded a while ago, like we said. This is our discussion of the 7 episodes of Coronation Street from 1960, and we've been raving about it on and off for the last month or so on the podcast, and now you get to hear in a bit more depth what we thought of those first 7. We had a really good time chatting about this, and I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as
more
we
nostalgia,
did
everybody.
It. Yeah, I mean, this is the week. This is the nostalgia week, isn't it? Tony Warren, this is for you.
Aww.
Moving on, let's go to the next section.